then Carver will be joining us via Zoom. He is on.
How's that?
So I can see.
All right. Well, then you can grab that one,
Thank you.
whatever works.
So I can put on to the-
Okay. Well, give me one moment here.
I just did it in commercial. But we can say that's gonna be.
Okay, I will call to order this special board meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees, February the 16th. 2023. Everyone is present. Trustee Carver is joining us via Zoom. Hopefully you can hear me, Ben.
I can. Everyone else is a little bit shaky, but you're very clear.
And when we do anything that requires you to participate in your official capacity, you will need to have your camera on.
Yep, I'm just keeping it off for the sake of the the live stream.
Okay. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I would move to item number 3 on the agenda, which is our public hearing for local law. Is this local law 1?
Yes.
Local law 1 of 2023, which is a local law authorizing section 466A of the New York State Real Property Tax Law, a property tax exemption to volunteer firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers. I will not read the entirety of the law. It's not very long, but I will read a couple of the highlights. Primarily from the exemption portion itself. What this particular tax exemption allows is for any enrolled member who has been certified by the Trumansburg Fire Company to be an enrolled member will be entitled to a 10% reduction in the taxable value of their primary residence within the village of Trumansburg for village tax purposes. Any member of the Trumansburg Fire Company who has achieved over 20 years of accumulated service can be considered a life member, and the exemption would continue for the remainder of their life, so long as the property serves as their primary residence. Any unremarried surviving spouse of a volunteer who is killed in the line of duty shall continue to receive the 10% exemption. If the fire company certifies that they are eligible, that volunteer had accumulated at least 5 years of service and the residence continues to be the primary residence of the surviving spouse, and any unremarried surviving spouse of a volunteer who passed away shall continue to receive the 10% exemption if the fire company certifies they're eligible and that volunteer had accumulated 20 years of service and the residence continues to be the primary residence of the surviving spouse. All of this is out of state law. And so I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing on local law 1 of 2023.
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are now in our public hearing for local law 1 of 2023. The only member of the public present is David from the Free Press Online. I don't know if you had any comments on this, David. Hearing nothing from David, I'll assume that's a no. And we don't have any members of the public here in person. And so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on local law 1 of 2023. So do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any board discussion on this local law?
I think this is fantastic to help volunteers the best we can. I heard coverage on the news last week when the county passed it that only Newfield had done the same, and I'd be happy to add our name to that list.
I think we're very fortunate to have the volunteers that we have, and they put in a lot of time. A lot of training, so I think it's a small way to, passing this is a small way to thank them for being there for us.
Certainly is a token of appreciation for sure. Any other comments? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to adopt local law 1 of 2023, a local law authorizing section 466A of the New York State Real Property Tax Law. I would entertain a motion to adopt that as presented.
Close it with fairness and then we. Yes.
Yes. I was Keith and then Marcia. And then all ayes.
And then there was discussion, so just want to make sure.
Public hearing was closed prior to the board discussion.
Oh, right.
Public hearing is to hear from the public when they decide to be present.
So I'll make that motion. Gordon.
Okay,
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any additional comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor of adopting local law 1 of 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes. Which takes us to item number 4, which is our first public comment period. Privilege of the floor, seeing no members of the public. David, if you do have anything to say, please jump in anytime. But seeing no other members of the public present online or in person, we will move directly to item number 5, which is old business. We have a resolution before us to consider. We in our Monday night meeting, we unanimously adopted a resolution to approve formation of the Three Falls Local Development Corporation and the bylaws associated with that entity. At the Town of Ulysses board meeting Tuesday night, their board similarly unanimously approved all of the documents that we approved. However, the night before, same night as our meeting Monday night, the town of Covert did not approve. They have, in fact, did not move the resolution to a vote. So they have, at this point, chosen not to take action on the resolution to join the local development corporation and the associated documentation. And in the event, or as it appears that there is at least some chance that Covert will not now be joining in this entity, in conversations with Supervisor Olson at the town of Ulysses, she and I agreed that we would forge ahead with just the two of us if necessary. And that would require us to increase our initial contribution from the $10,000 we approved Monday night to $20,000. Ulysses did approve a contribution of $20,000 Tuesday night. So we would be increasing our contribution from $10,000 to $20,000 to match theirs, which actually gives us a little bit more initial seed money than we would have had all 3 municipalities opted in for 10. So since all of this was done very formally, rather than just resolve to amend something we took a roll call vote on, I've drafted a resolution, which you all have, and I will just read it into the record. So that it can be, assuming that we pass it, it can be attached as an amendment to what we adopted Monday night. And so tonight's resolution before the board states, whereas the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees adopted a resolution on February 13, 2023, authorizing the village's participation in the creation of the Three Falls Local Development Corporation. And whereas the aforementioned resolution appropriated $10,000 from unencumbered fund balance as an initial membership fee. And whereas the Board of Trustees wishes to increase the village's initial contribution to the Three Falls Local Development Corporation to $20,000. And whereas the Ulysses Town Board adopted a resolution to do the same at their meeting on February 14, 2023. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees hereby amends its February 13, 2023 resolution to approve an initial membership fee of $20,000 and appropriates such amount from unencumbered general fund balance to pay such fee, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall be attached to the original February 13, 2023 resolution authorizing the village's participation in the creation of the Three Falls Local Development Corporation. And I would so move. Would anybody like to second?
Second.
Any conversation, discussion, questions?
They give any, was there any discussion with the town of Covert, the reasons, or did you know whether they had any?
I did not attend, I did not attend the meeting. Monday
But
night
I
'cause
mean,
was here.
yeah, but did you hear by
I have
chance?
heard that there was a lot of conversation at their board meeting. And that there were a lot of concerns about the primarily the bylaws and what was contained in it. And that the covert attorney was going to reach out to either the town or village attorney and have a conversation. And it sounded like there was going to be, it sounded like it would be unlikely that their board would have 3 votes to join unless there were significant changes made to the bylaws.
Hmm.
But I don't know what those changes would be. I think, certainly we have been comfortable with the bylaws as drafted, and so is Ulysses. So I don't know what changes would be requested, and whether we would be agreeable to it. But we'll have to wait and see what that conversation
Right.
is like.
Is there a deadline for them,
Um,
or we would decide, okay, we can't come to a decision, we're moving on?
I mean, certainly there's no legal deadline. I think the town and we are committed to moving forward. And I don't know that when you have the initial adoption resolution said that everything we voted on Monday night would take effect upon another municipality voting to the same effect. So everything that we voted for is now in effect because Ulysses voted to join. So we could file the necessary paperwork with the state to form the corporation anytime. Should we choose to give Ulysses another meeting, we certainly could. I think give Covert another meeting, we certainly could. They don't meet again this month, so that means waiting until mid-March, which we could certainly do if we wanted to. So I think the way the bylaws are written, now that we have 2 municipalities that have opted in, then the 4 directors who have been appointed would determine whether or not to entertain having anyone else join, which would then come back to the boards to approve. But it wouldn't come to the boards to approve if the directors weren't in favor of it. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying it's up to the 2 directors from Ulysses and the 2 directors from Trumansburg to decide how much time to allow or whether to go ahead and file the formation paperwork.
My other question was, and I know this might not be directly related to this resolution, but it felt like there was discussion about this model could follow like the Myers Park and Lansing example, where residents of the sponsored municipalities would not have to pay to get in. Is that still under consideration, or is it thought that basically it's going to be admission for everybody?
So I actually don't know how, what limitations there may or may not be on that from the state, because it is going to be state park property.
Versus Lansing, it's town property.
Correct.
Right.
So if it's a municipal park, that's one thing. If it's state park property, I don't know what kind of discretion the management company, which is the LDC, would have on who they charge and when. I know, for instance, as a state park property, I believe, will be required to accept Empire Pass. So I don't know if that's a possibility or not. That will come during the conversations directly with Parks, which is part of the reason to move the LDC formation along, so that there is in fact an entity for Parks to negotiate. Right. Which they're willing to do ahead of them actually owning the property, which is nice. But we need to get to that next step, and we have a meeting scheduled March 1st with folks from Parks to kind of get an update on where things stand. As an aside, just fortuitous timing, I did have the opportunity to meet the Commissioner of State Parks today, who's in town for the State of the State address yesterday, and then they had regional park office meetings. So there were a lot of folks in Ithaca for that. So I did have the opportunity to meet with him for 10 minutes or so today. He seems personally quite excited about this acquisition and thinks it's a great piece of, he's done what we call the windshield tour. He's driven through the property and is quite a big fan of the location and beautiful lakefront and so on. So that was very
That's
nice.
great.
That was very nice. I appreciate him taking the time to meet with Caitlin Olson and myself today. But as far as the resolution goes, any additional questions, comments, concerns? Okay, well, hearing none, then I would call for a vote on the resolution approving the amendment to our resolution from Monday night, increasing our contribution to the LDC from 10,000 to 20,000. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was a silent aye.
Yeah, I was like, harder.
No, he unmuted, he didn't pick it up.
Okay.
Great, well, thank you. So we will attach that at some point. At some point, Jessica, we're going to need certified copies of the resolutions from Monday night and this
Okay.
that we can pass along. Okay, moving right along to item number 6 on the agenda, which is new business. We have one item of new business, which is a discussion of a resolution which would designate March, which is already Women's History Month nationally, would designate it as Lydia Godfrey Sears Women's History Month. So I will just read this into the record. Thank you to Vivian, who was here the other night, for drafting this. It was drafted as a proclamation, but I've turned it into a resolution so we can give it a little bit more formality from the board. The proclamation reads, excuse me. The proclamation reads, whereas National Women's History Month has been celebrated throughout the United States since 1987, and whereas the 2023 Women's History Month theme is celebrating women who tell our stories, and whereas celebrating women who tell our stories recognizes women in every community, past and present, who devoted their lives and talents to reflect the human condition through the decades in all forms of media and storytelling, including art, music, print, radio, TV, stage, screen, blogs, podcasts, and more. And whereas Lydia Godfrey Sears was a resident of the village of Trumansburg from 1930 to 1975, taking an active part in all things Trumansburg. And whereas Lydia Godfrey Sears, who lived 1899 to 1978, made, documented, preserved, and recorded the history of the village of Trumansburg through reestablishing the Ulysses Philomathic Library in 1935, founding a collection of historic clothing known as the Costume Bureau, serving as Regent, Chief Teganic Chapter of Daughters of the American Revolution from 1937 to 1939, teaching 3rd grade at the Trumansburg Central School District from 1946 until 1963. Acting as the first female trustee of the First Presbyterian Church of Ulysses and writing its sesquicentennial history in 1953. Writing local history articles for the Trumansburg Free Press from 1954 to 1963. Serving as Village of Trumansburg historian from 1965 to 1975. And writing a history of Trumansburg from 1792 to 1967, which was privately published in 1968. And whereas Trumansburg Rotary named Lydia Godfrey Sears Outstanding Citizen of the Year in 1968, and whereas Lydia Godfrey Sears loved Trumansburg's natural beauty, meandering streets, and pioneers, writing, most of all, I love Trumansburg for what it is today, the old and new blending, the pride in village appearance, the independent thinking, the gracious mixing of young people and old, a community sense of humor, of compassion, of tolerance that binds us together in understanding and devotion. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees hereby proclaims March 2023 as Lydia Godfrey Sears Women's History Month in the Village of Trumansburg. And be it resolved further that residents of the Village of Trumansburg are encouraged to recognize the month of March with appropriate celebrations, commemorations, and events, and to preserve the histories of their female relatives and ancestors of the Village of Trumansburg by seeking and recording their stories and collecting and depositing historical materials related to them in the Ulysses Historical Society Museum. Would someone like to move that? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, conversation, or discussion?
Does she have any local descendants?
I don't believe so. No. I'm not aware that she had children.
No.
There will be a number of celebratory events in and around Trumansburg, as Vivian mentioned Monday night.
Did she teach Marcia?
No, she didn't. I'm too young. She did teach my mother, though.
I was wondering.
Yes.
Any additional comments? Hearing none, then all in favor of adopting this resolution to designate March as Lydia Godfrey Sears Women's History Month in the Village of Trumansburg, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Can't tell if Ben's frozen or not.
I think that's frozen.
We could not freeze that. He's unfrozen now. Okay. Great. So then that brings us right to the reason we're here, our budget working session. First budget working session of this budget cycle. What I'd like to do is find my budget. What I'd like to do is start at the top of the general fund, starting with the revenue side. I'd like to, unless anyone has a preference otherwise, I'd like to go line by line through the budget. If there's anything that anyone wants to discuss, jump in. I don't want to pause for a minute because there's a couple hundred lines. If we can move through various lines, we will. If there's anything that anyone wants to discuss, don't be bashful. Does that sound okay for everyone?
Mhm.
And this is the general water sewer budget 23-24 in the Dropbox.
Yes.
On the general tab.
Doing water sewer.
No.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought.
So for Marcia in particular, since you haven't done this in a number of years.
Yeah, Mindy.
The very first line, the appropriated fund balance, we leave till the very end.
Okay,
So right at the top.
okay.
Becky, can you show the?
Oh, got it. Right here.
It's
Uh-huh.
So we have an unencumbered fund balance, which is basically cash on hand that rests in the general fund, unused money
Right.
that's accumulated over time. That also includes some of the ARPA, the American Recovery Act money that came from the federal government.
Okay.
That was about 188,000 and change. The comptroller generally likes or recommends as a best practice somewhere in the 10 to 20% of your total budget. Your total annual budget should be held in cash
Okay.
for emergencies and overruns. When you start to get much north of 20, the comptroller starts to think maybe you shouldn't be hanging on to so much taxpayer cash. When you get much lower than 10, the comptroller starts to think that you're running it really, really tight.
Tight. Okay.
20%, just by way of reference, 20% of our budget would be about $660,000. So we have a healthy fund balance at this point. It's higher than that 660 number. How much of that to appropriate to be considered revenue is the art, right?
Mhm.
Because if you appropriate too much, you might end up running lean with too little fund balance in future years. If you appropriate too little, then you're gonna have to raise taxes.
Right.
So we do that, we come to that last. Real property taxes, A1001 is the fund line all the way to your left.
Mhm.
Real property taxes is the difference between expenses and all the other revenue.
Okay.
So we leave that second to last. Other payments in lieu of taxes, we used to get pilot payment in lieu of taxes from Juniper Manor because they don't pay property tax.
Mhm.
So in lieu of that, they used to contribute some money towards village operations. They stopped doing that some time ago. Maybe worth a conversation with them about.
Who took over then? I mean, it has changed hands. That's why things have changed over there. I understand.
It has not changed ownership. It's still owned by Trumansburg Seniors Incorporated, which is a local not-for-profit. Peter Cook sits on the board. That's why he.
But isn't there a federal government body that,
It's a management company,
it's a management company?
property management.
Okay, so is there a new property management
Property
company that,
management company is out of Utica,
okay,
and I don't remember. It was Better Housing of Tompkins, which was absorbed into INHS.
right,
So INHS was the property manager for about a couple of years anyway. And then they wanted to make some changes because they weren't particularly, they didn't like some of the way things were done. And Trumansburg Seniors Inc. decided not to go that route. They decided to
Mhm.
find a different property management company. So it would be up to the local organization that owns the property, though, if we want to talk to them about a pilot. It wouldn't be up to the management company. Although I'm sure they would have an opinion. Interest and penalties on real property taxes. This is, you know what? I just realized I don't have the budget you're looking at in front of me. Give me 1 second. Let's play split screen bingo here. So the expenses anticipated column, this is what Vicki and Jessica fill in. I think we're probably through the end of December, or have you gotten through the end of January? Of where? November. Okay. Some of these I've updated on my end. And some of it is just guessing, but interest and penalties on real property taxes. That $6,000 number is pretty standard. We don't normally deviate from that much from year to year. Non-property tax distribution, so that's sales tax.
Mhm.
Last year, the year that ended May of 22, we came in above estimates. I think we were 456,000 or so. So we budgeted a little bit under that at 450,000 for the year that we're in. I think we're going to come in a little bit under that, but not by a ton. So I'm actually comfortable staying at the 450 number unless the board wanted to be extremely conservative and lower that number. Pre-COVID, we were heading towards 4, I think 4.25. Obviously, COVID shut down all things commerce for a while, so we were low on that end, and then rebounded very, very strongly. And the sense that I get from listening to the county and their estimates is that we're probably going to remain flat-ish. So unless there's a strong desire to be ultra conservative and lower that number, I think 450 is
Is good.
fine. Utilities gross receipts tax, so this is primarily what, cable?
Nope, the gross utility is the water towers. Oh, gross utility.
No,
yes.
utilities gross receipts tax,
Yes, that's, the tax.
utility transmission.
spectrum, Nice that always.
So that's fairly standard from year to year. We'll be a little over the 40,000 this year, most likely, but keeping it flat is fine. Clerk fees, you don't have a ton of clerk fees, but it's a few $100s every year. Police fees.
That, the 4,400 is kind of over because during grassroots. We wrote tickets that got us about $1,675. Which is very, I've never seen.
So that 4410 is a real number,
Yeah, it is a real number, but it's not realistic.
but it's not projected forward. We've actually done
We're
4400.
going to do about that, yes. But that 1,600 was very,
Unusual for
yes,
Well, it doesn't have to be.
that's what I think.
So is cheap expecting, so I have a $2,000 number plugged in. I don't know where I got that from.
That's about right. Because he's had them on more of a, writing tickets than, in my past year.
So that's above what we budgeted last year, but below what we're thinking about this year. Kind of.
I don't
So
know.
based on my grassroots project, so if you take the data, bunch of people got 1,600, half of them get had to that, don't do the same. thing
Right.
Again.
Yeah,
That's for the 2,000. Getting half the same time.
So I didn't realize that 4,400 was a real number. If that's a real number, I'd be willing to go as high as 3. Because I think history will teach us that expecting half of the people to learn a lesson is insanely optimistic.
If I recall, I think part of this was the school did not do their parking lot fundraiser this past year, so people just took it upon themselves to park illegally at the school. They
I
did
think
not.
they did not, yeah.
And so I think that was like private property, like people violated the no parking at a lot of the school spots.
Oh, and
So I don't know if the school comes back with their parking fundraiser, will that decrease the
We
ticket?
would write to funds.
No, but it pushes people to park
other places is what I'm saying.
Still though, if it's 1,600 and we're looking at 44 right now, that 3,000 is
Yeah,
200 off from that. It's
Close-ish.
close-ish.
yeah, I just remember Chief saying like there was kind of unprecedented amount of people just kind of going rogue with their parking last summer for whatever reason. I mean,
Are we expecting people to be much more reasonable in 2023 than they were in 2022?
I don't think
No, I don't think so.
expecting reason anytime soon is,
We had some fairly high reimbursements from New York State in 21, 22 than we had ever in Montana.
Well, looking at the number from last year's actual budget was just over 3 as well.
Right.
So 3 seems it's like a reasonable number.
I like 3. Let's make that 3.
Make that
Okay, we got police vest reimbursement. That's always a hit or miss. We have the $7,423 is exactly half of what it costs for the second crossing guard with payroll and payroll taxes.
Yes.
And we're going to get half of that back from the school as soon as we execute that MOU. Fire inspection, Vicky, you have 2,500 when we had previously budgeted 4.
And that, because that is what in my discussion with Tom, which he thought was realistic, considering we thought we are only gonna bring in about 1,700, and it has to do with how Tom does his fire inspections, because there are some years that are a little more heavy on fire inspections than the next year, like certain properties only need to be done every 2 years, where businesses need to be done every year. And I know a few years back before Tom started, that this thing was where he was trying to catch up everything that hadn't been done. That's why we have a heavy year every other year.
Hmm.
So that was Tom's number that he gave me.
Okay.
Are you good with that?
No, but if that's Tom's number,
Okay,
that's Tom's number.
okay.
Police contract you. Yeah, that's what
I'm sorry. I'll put it in here.
I think it's really sad.
She anticipates a slight increase to, burn dairy.
Yeah.
Because he's significantly, there was a big increase to grassroots south last year. And he's hoping to get burn dairy
I know, I felt-
back to their normal meeting them.
Zoning fees are pretty flat every year, 3,000.
You want to do something with EMS revenue? Because over the course of, I'd say the last 4 or 5 years. Now that the schools are required for us to be at school events. Football games, soccer games. We could potentially put in some sort of revenue there.
You have a real number.
So I'll talk with Joel about this. He's also started a training program, so we may have revenue through a couple different sources for this year. I don't know exactly what he expects, but I made a note and I'll check in with him and see what he expects there. I'd say for now, we could, keep it at 0 and I'll update it next couple days.
Okay. Yeah, the school is reimbursing us just for our actual costs, so.
No, we bill them $120 an hour for paramedics and $90 an hour for EMTs. For the sporting events and for the number of hours that they're there.
When did that change?
5 years ago. I don't know.
Well, we need to see a real number to see whether it's worth including or
I
not.
can give you 2 seconds. I can.
And I apologize if you already addressed this, but why had we adopted 0 in that one? For 122, 123, just because it couldn't be counted.
For EMS revenue,
Yeah,
it was never significant.
okay,
Because we just got a check from,
even though there was a grant. and then-
so right now we're at about $1,100. And I don't anticipate any more revenue from that unless better.
So let's see what Ben comes up with in conversation with Joel about the training.
Okay. Do you want to leave it at 0 for now?
Yeah. Zoning fees, operating permit, planning board fees, stop DWI, those are always.
That's
Sorry.
DWI is what Joe said. He said at this point, the sheriff's office was not
Yeah, I
offering any money for that.
don't think they will.
Okay.
Fire protection services, EMS protection, that's money we get from the towns for their contracts.
Yeah, we're trying it out. It's gonna be good.
Interest and earnings on reserves. So I need Vicky or Jess to have you make a note of that March first or second. See what's credited to the reserve accounts.
Okay.
If it's anywhere close to what was credited in January, then we'll be on pace for 24 to 26,000 in interest earnings, which is something we haven't seen in a long, long time. So
Okay.
for now, I want to plug in 20,000
Okay,
as the number.
We're at 82401, correct?
No, 2402.
Thank you.
And then just let me know what that February number is.
it should be right on track with that, because we haven't used really any reserves. So for interest and earnings on the checking account, do you want to leave it at the 275?
Well, the number you gave me when I asked a couple weeks ago, you said was just reserves. You didn't give
That was
me,
just. reserves,
you didn't give
yes.
me a general checking number.
No.
What was it? Do you have one for January?
Yep. Yep.
Wow. Just to be clear, once she's running that, 82402. We adopted a budget of 7,700 and shifts have been made, and so we're just spending it be 20, right?
So through December, 140.
No, I would need January's interest.
On our checking is not gonna be any different than, actually, it's gonna be less than what December was. Because we have less money in there. The
Right, so
interest,
there's no reason to put anything in that 2401 line then.
okay, well. all right. Because that didn't change, the big change didn't happen on our checking.
There's no
on-
reason to put anything in. I would zero out that line. 2401, I would make zero.
Okay, I mean, we can do that.
Rental wireless, that is the water tower antennas for the various cell companies. Building permits, that's a Tom number, I believe.
It is.
So that's the revenue that we get from the cell companies?
T-Mobile and AT&T,
Yeah.
Okay, who sets those terms?
they do pretty much.
There's a contract.
Okay, I'm just wondering who sets the number.
It's multi-year contract. There's a market rate.
Okay,
for those things,
And we get a 5% increase every year.
something like that. Building permits, that's a Tom number. The next several lines only occur when one of those things happens, when we sell something or we have an insurance claim. So we can skip down to the mulch dial truck, which we actually are on pace for 2,400. How about that?
That's good to know. We've done a couple like sales, and drop the price a bit and try and get people excited about using it because we have a lot of mulch.
Mhm.
But it's nice to see that's balanced back out with the amount of people that have picked up on that.
We had a lot more people coming for it. with the
Yeah.
sale prices.
That's good to get. That's great.
Skipping to A3001, state revenue sharing, that's AIM. That's assistance from the state, which never changes, much to everyone's chagrin. Mortgage tax, Vicky sent me numbers, which looks like we're on pace for about 18-ish, 19-ish. It's fairly high. But I have in my budget, I put in 17,500 as our guesstimate. It's hard to get mortgage tax when homes don't sell because there aren't any for sale. Consolidated highway, that's CHIPS. We didn't, is that right, Becky? We did not use last year's 45.
Correct.
So we get 45,000 a year. We didn't use it last year, so we're calling it 90 this year.
Yeah, Dusty's saving up to do all the south, and that takes basically 2 years worth.
And I gave you the balance of that, okay, but I gave it to them too.
and what do we use that money for?
Paving.
Paving?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay.
You say all this out.
Yeah, well, that's the next one on the list,
List.
but it's being a longer one in the village, it takes 2 years to work up to.
Why we wouldn't pave south this year? Right?
Uh,
In
May-
the fall.
in the fall, yeah.
September, October.
So you think all the infrastructure for South will be done by then so that we can pay?
Which infrastructure you mean? Like the work in
It's
46
the
South?
new- Yeah,
This is for South Street, like actually South Street itself.
oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah,
gotcha.
sorry, not for that project.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just saying. you
No,
know,
all
you're
those-
plugging Into all those lines and you're not gonna, okay.
No, that's
gotcha.
all gonna be done by INHS. This
Okay.
is just South Street itself.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Dusty has been thinking about, do we wait until more of that's done before repaving it? Because there's gonna be a lot of truck traffic. So he's thinking about when's exactly the right
Yeah,
time. But just for this point specifically, that's why we didn't use the 45 last year, is because it will take the full 90 or, more than the 45 at least.
Yeah,
I mean, if INHS gets infrastructure in this spring like they want to, then by September, October, it's gonna be.
right. Yeah,
Right.
that was just my question, like with all the truck traffic and putting all the,
Yeah, he's keeping that
Everything in
eye. He's
there.
thinking about that for sure.
Farmers market business sponsorship, that's out of the farmers market budget, what they are planning to bring in this year, those next several lines. Which brings us to the last line, intrafund transfer is actually our EMS billing revenue. We have had 135,000 in there for years. I think we've hit it once or twice. Normally end up a little short of it, but I'm okay with sticking with that number. And Joel is working on ways to marginally increase billing revenue. He's going to start. We can bill. So we only bill, as you know, we only bill patient or their insurance company when there's a transport, when they take a ride in an ambulance. So there are a lot of situations where there's a fender bender in front of the sure save and everyone signs off. They don't need a ride to the ambulance. They've been checked out. And so those people don't get a bill. However, specifically in the case of car accidents, we have the ability to bill the insurance company anyway. The car insurance company.
right.
For the ambulance coming to the scene of a car accident, which is something we've never done, and Joel's going to start doing that. So I'm hoping, I don't know that it'll be a giant number, but it'll be an incrementally larger number. So
So we have a number,
135, same as last year.
okay,
Where is that? I'm not seeing it.
eight
Where is
thousand
it?
everyone, here. It's
Last revenue line.
Right here. Okay, there it is. Okay.
Again, unless the board feels like being super conservative.
That's another one that I'll check in with Joel about, but I think we can keep the same assumption for now.
Okay. So that's it for revenue, unless there's any questions. We'll circle back to property taxes and the unencumbered balance. Which takes us to spending.
Yeah,
sounds like what we anticipated.
So first lines of spending. We have village board stipends, deputy mayor stipend. Village board contractual, that's if the board needs to spend money on something specific. Training would be one. It's kind of an odds and ends catch-all line.
New microphones as we break them.
New microphones, we paid for the owl, our good friend the owl, out of that line. State of the village goodies. And then the mayor stipend, mayor contractual, all of those lines remain unchanged from last year. Yeah.
I don't know the village board contractual amount.
I
It's
have
not gonna
2,000. I plugged in 2,000 to keep the same as last year.
I have a question about that, if considering a computer. Well, we know what he's doing there.
I thought that the deal was that we were gonna buy, there was money in our budget to buy a new laptop, because really this laptop should be replaced. Tammy's is newer than mine, and you were gonna take this one. Is that,
It's fine.
yeah,
Yeah, this is mine. This is my personal one. I don't-
Yeah,
It
that one.
still
Grinding.
works enough.
So it works as long as you don't do more than one thing at a time.
Right, but this one, that was what.
Sounds like me.
You want yours to remain?
We got two comedians on the board now.
Is that line 52 for anticipated? I guess it's supposed to be 50,000.
I just changed it. I have problems with zeros.
She doesn't.
I'm certainly not lobbying for a raise. I'm just curious, when was the last time we adjusted trustee compensation? I ask because I think down the road, like, it may matter to help people decide to run.
It's been a while.
It hasn't
And
been
is it
changed.
good,
in
is
that
it,
time.
is it good practice to not adjust? I know we probably feel obligated to not pay ourselves. But at some point, right, you gotta adjust everything.
So every year I get a spreadsheet from NICOM, which lists the salaries for mayors and trustees in every village in the state. And we're right about average for, it actually shows the population of the municipality too. So we're right about average for a population our size. I think we've raised everything once since I've been here. It's been a while. It's been a long time. It's one of those odd and uncomfortable things. It's like, Albany legislators gave themselves a big raise. I mean, legislatures at every level have to vote for what they'll pay themselves.
It'd be great if they actually got something done. At least we can say that for us.
It is. We're certainly average for Tompkins County and fairly average for New York State, but it is one of those open questions about a fair bit of work that goes on.
Yeah, and not just for myself, but I mean, like Keith brought up a really good point. In order to, maybe that is an incentive for people to run instead of running the other way. I don't know, but for me, it doesn't make a difference to change it, but I don't know how everybody else feels.
Yeah, I don't feel it's like lobby for a change.
Yeah,
I feel like every year we come to that line, it's just like a formality, but it's,
Do you want to keep in mind, see where you end up with the tax levy and know that maybe next year, so serious consideration. It's been 11 years.
also, I don't know if it's really realistic. People aren't running for trustee because it doesn't pay enough. I think some people are surprised to find out that there's a stipend at all.
oh, yeah.
Because like school.
I know when I ran the first time, I didn't think there was any stipend and
It's definitely was influential.
yeah. I mean, you're doing it because you want to serve your community. That's the motivator, but
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't think the reason why I have a hard time finding planning board and zoning board members, I don't think it's because it's unpaid. I think there's a lot of other reasons why people don't want to sit on various boards.
well, time, number one.
Time is,
Yeah, time, I think, is the number one thing.
but it's an open question. I don't know that I've ever advocated for an increase, but I'm not philosophically opposed to it. And I do think when if you add up the number of hours Ben has spent
Oh my
working on
gosh.
things over
Yeah.
the last 5 years.
Insane.
it's gonna be like
Especially you two, I'm thinking about.
bucket.
Yeah.
What would your hourly?
$1.15 an hour.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
75 cents.
Stuff like that.
$2.16.
Talk that about how well he sleeps at night as a result of his job.
I wish I slept that well. Yeah, if you've got that spreadsheet with NICOM data, if you've got that handy at some place, that'd be interesting to look at. I agree. I want to increase it for the point of I do think it helps some folks think about entertaining the idea, and I would like to increase it on that front alone, but I also wonder if really any number is, I guess I don't know what that number is when it kind of actually gets important. I mean, I hear from Jess that what made a difference, so that's important, and I wonder if a little bit more would make a little more of a difference. It's all kind of guesswork at that point, but
Another factor to consider in the talking about it is that if you want to increase diversity in the board profile, then
right.
$5,000 for 6 or 7 months.
But I also don't want people serving based on that reason.
Well, they would.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
Yeah, no, it's not, but it is, it is,
So keep that balance.
depending on who you are, it could be significant.
It's significant. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's significant.
Yeah,
When I came onto the board, it was $2,000 for trustees, and there was no bump for deputy mayor. And then I want to say it was 2010 or 11. So I think. You came on in 12, so it was 11. Deb Watkins was deputy mayor,
Right.
and she was taking on all of the work related to the well project. So Marty wanted to bump. Did we bump trustees from 2 to 4? I forget whether there was 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 directly. And then created the bump for deputy mayor because of her additional work, and it has not moved off of that number since.
So,
Okay.
So to be continued in terms
Yeah.
of conversation, I think for this year, we can. Unless everyone desires to make a change later, I think we can plug in the same numbers as last year. Auditor contractual, that's Dwayne, who you all met Monday night. I believe we are the only village in, I'm sure we're the only village in Tompkins County, but we're one of the only villages in New York State that do an annual audit. Most villages do every 2 to 3 years. Some do it only when someone finds something they don't like and they want to make sure the numbers are correct. So I don't know that we need to do an audit every year, but I also think it looks odd when we've done it every year for a long time to suddenly stop doing it every year. So
I think it's important.
me too.
I think it's very important to have an annual audit.
it is helpful, I will say.
New staff.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, you know,
For sure.
I do find Dwayne very helpful and very responsive whenever we need something. And getting those unencumbered balance numbers calculated for us every year are helpful.
The customer service from Inserno is
Oh,
above and beyond. I can't.
to be able to contact them. throughout
Yes,
the year
they don't
and see
charge
the
us for
questions.
that.
That's,
You know, we can ask him any question anytime, whatever. He comes up to help with our AEDs. I mean, I personally can't say anything bad about them at all.
A1325.1 has been rebranded to say clerk treasurer, personal service.
Foreshadow.
We have done, I've shifted around. So you have the individual who sits in that position, they have a salary, but then we break out a portion of it to different lines. So I don't actually love breaking it out in general, but we do allocate a piece to fire and EMS since we have contracts with the towns. So whatever work the clerk treasurer or deputy clerk treasurer does that kind of falls into that camp,
okay,
we're able to allocate something to that. We also break out a significant chunk to water and sewer, which does not hit property taxes. So I've realigned some of those. And I don't have the breakdown in front of me, whatever I sent you the other day, I think it's.
You want to know the bit? You want to know what the breakdown?
yeah,
Okay.
if you have them quick.
The clerk treasurer, 30% of her salary will, and Jess will be considered the clerk treasurer. 30% of her salary goes to the village, which is the general budget,
Mhm.
20% to EMS, 10% to fire, 30% to water, and 1% to sewer.
10%,
The deputy, say again,
10% to sewer.
10, oh, I'm sorry.
That's 0 again.
Oh, okay, sorry. And the deputy clerk now will, be 20% village, 20% to EMS, 10% to fire, 40% to water, and 10% to sewer.
Okay.
We've never done more than 10% sewer with any of us.
Yeah.
I mean, we can always change, of course. but- So, that's what the rate.
So that's where you'll see odd numbers when you look at something
Okay.
like clerk, treasurer, personal service. These are all calculated. Everything, by the way, payroll related in the budget is based on a 3% raise.
Yeah.
Which is contractual to DPW and discretionary everywhere else. For now. Clerk, treasurer, equipment. $500.
There's also just, when we talked about the computer, there's $500 in general, 500 in water, and 500 in sewer.
Okay,
Because that laptop's gonna be about $1,500.
yeah, okay.
So clerk, treasurer, equipment, clerk, treasurer, contractual. Clerk, treasurer, training, so the training would be NICOM fall meetings and
Yep.
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Then we get to the deputy clerk, treasurer, personal. $1420.4 law contractual, so this is Guy. For all things that are not EMS, zoning, planning, water and sewer. So this is kind of a catch-all. Hey, we have a legal question for Guy.
Okay, so this is all the extra stuff that we may need his.
Personnel.
Yes.
Okay.
So. We haven't lowered this in a while, but I'm actually wondering.
So say if someone sues the village, it would be. Extra.
It depends on what they sue the village for. One way for them. What's the question, Jess?
I'm confused, I'm sorry, I thought that the clerk was 40 in the office and the deputy was 30. Because the deputy is 40 in water.
No, it's 30 and
My
20.
opinion.
But I didn't, I can show you.
Okay.
I'm just saying, make sure that we can understand.
You're gonna wait until Tuesday?
Oh, because it's gonna take me a minute here. So.
Oh, I don't want you to do it right
I
now.
would- I will do it, no, I'll do it tomorrow, okay, is that what you're doing? Okay,
So law, so if someone, yes, if someone sues the village for. Oh,
Yeah, I'm
God.
just saying, we've had lawsuits in the past, so I was just wondering.
Well, it depends on what the lawsuit is. So if it's zoning related.
Right,
Then
okay,
it would go under zoning legal,
okay.
which
so
is further down. If it's, well, we're in contract negotiations for a department, that legal time goes to that department.
Okay,
So I could be talking to lowering this line. On the other hand, it's a heck of a catch-all.
it's tough.
I corrected that. What I had done was, I forgot to change my 20 hours to Justin's 40 hours. So you want to know what the number is?
What line are we?
Oh,
on?
I'm sorry, this would be the 1325.1, line 58, for
Hold
the
on.
clerk treasurer.
Well, I'm not, hold on, 13.
Two 5.1 is not.
1325.1.
Yes, it's 17,771. And,
1320, hold on a second.
okay,
So what was 8886
yeah,
is now what?
17,771.
Okay.
Sorry,
And we're
Is-
talking about A1, 4, 5.1.
yeah, I'll put that one.
So back to law contractual. Any feelings from the board about, I had planned to keep it at 10. I don't know if we need to bump it or drop it.
I think that's a safe bet. I wouldn't want to drop it for sure.
Yeah.
The bulk of any questions from Compass and sort of already been answered. And the concept. Right,
That would be zoning and plans.
zoning.
Okay, then next line is engineer contractual. This is comprehensive stormwater management, right?
Yeah,
What are the odds that we're gonna be able to get any of that into this budget year? The one we're in now? And or is this the spread out version?
that's the 3-year spread out version, and I had not anticipated asking them to do it earlier. I could ask that if we've got money that could go against it.
So Ulysses is looking at a larger grant for kind of broadly speaking, stormwater and
Mhm.
those types of drainage engineering study. Wondering whether we want to try to piggyback with them, or do we just not want to wait and have it budgeted?
I mean, my 2 cents is I'd like to keep moving forward. If we can find ways to align with them as we go, that's great, but this is, I mean, I anticipated zoning be the thing that most people would come up to me after the state of the village, and it was all stormwater people. It is a thing everywhere. It impacts everybody. I think it's really time that we start figuring out a plan for it. So
Okay.
that'd be my ask.
Okay. Elections, there'll be another village election next year, next March, so that's what that money's for. Building personal services, that's the cleaner. Thankfully, we have one again.
Yeah, she's so.
Building equipment, I use that copier. That copier is just fine.
This was not my.
Sure, we also don't have a quote, so I don't think we're prepared to suggest anything different.
We zero that out.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
What,
Just FYI.
what was the issue, real or perceived, with the copier?
The issue with the copier is real, which is that it does not print true to color often. So when we were doing things like printing out hard copies of the comprehensive plan, which a lot of people wanted, there's a terrible gray yellow bar, so you can't really print professional material, should you?
Would that be something that the service contract covers?
Yeah, and they get called a couple times, and it's been on it, and it just doesn't, yeah. And then we get told, oh, it's an old copier. So I think that we don't do a lot of these projects. It should be definitely thought of that it is definitely on this last place, that every copy in the morning, regardless of which tray or all the settings we adjust and all the things, it changes every single time. If there's a sign that it's on its way out, but we don't have a quote to, I can't make a case to say how to shoot this. That's satisfactory answer to your question.
I've also suggested to Tom, who uses it the most, that he goes on personal printer.
He needs to be able to print big things though. So pretty sure that in the long run, consolidating printers to having one as an office backup, it's also sensitive financial information to be like checks. You don't want to do shit, but we don't have we just need another year. And we can.
Are we fully maximizing digital solutions?
Yes. Yes, for postcards, and we could talk about our building, but let's move that forward. It's gonna need to be, well, and we can see again what Toshiba says, oh, yeah, let's make that part of your service contract in case you're really. But we can make that work.
So did we buy that or are we leasing that copier?
We bought
We bought that one.
How much is leasing a copier?
Right,
Less.
see, these are amazing questions that we haven't answered.
Less. I think we
Let's
paid-
lease a copier.
I think
Yeah.
we paid 13 or 14,000 for that one.
That
Oh,
seems,
But we use it a lot, or we did at the time.
right.
For sure. But again, like a responsible business model, we show you what we're already spending in print materials and what are we speaking, how we better
Yeah,
have.
let's have Toshiba compete with themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
But thank you for taking it seriously.
Buildings, office, building contractual, that's all the stuff,
What stuff?
paper, toilet paper, coffee.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
Buildings, maintenance and repairs.
yeah, do you see the new roof? On that, I know it's that we were.
Um,
That's the thing, just paying about 50 grand, you can't get. He's having a very hard time getting contractors there.
Sounds about right.
65-ish without looking in,
the building reserve.
yes. So we could take it out of there. And then start building up that reserve. and
For
make-
something like that, we're not putting it in this line.
You're right.
Can I make a comment? Our village office looks like hell. It does. The carpet's all ripped up. It's water stained. It is a terrible representation of our office. I mean, how much does new carpet cost? You have somebody come in and fix the floor. $2,000, whoop-de-doo.
But yes,
I'll go shopping for the carpet. I bet you I can get it for less than $2,000. But I mean, it looks terrible. It's all ripped up. It's a hazard. I mean, what if somebody caught their heel or something on that whole ripped part that's there on the bare, right where the wall was? It's right down the middle of the floor. And it's like all frayed and crappy looking. I mean, come on. Do we have any money to fix that?
Mhm.
Let's get some. Looks terrible.
you're right. I don't know why we're all.
I literally have never heard anyone ask about the carpet in the office. All I hear about is the heat.
Well, and the heat's ridiculous too. You want me to go there?
Yeah, it's always 85 degrees.
On the ceiling.
I mean, I think, yeah. We know the limitations of the building in general, especially as it pertains to things in the police department, but we can do some things to help the aesthetics.
Well, and it's practical too. I mean, the carpet's ripped in there. I mean,
Paint the front door, we need to.
But no one really sees
replace
that, so.
the carpet, so no, they do, they come in and they want to review documents.
you know what? There's really something about the attitude of allowing your employees to work in a crap hole. That is not okay.
Yeah.
That's not okay. That doesn't say to them that, you know, they're valued in any way. That, they can just sit there and, you know. That's not okay to have ripped up carpeting and things that don't work well.
So we can get an estimate. Perfect. And put that in there, let's work with Dusty to get that.
All coming out of reserve. We're not putting it in this line,
That was my question, so the roof is coming out of reserve.
100%.
Okay, but
Okay.
that's also just.
Yeah, I just don't know where that money came from. That was just my comment about,
Okay.
we need to find some money to do that.
There's some things that we could do to make it feel without spending. the budget. To make.
But we need a new floor in there.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I hear your general aesthetic and I echoing that. Thank you.
What would you think to put in that line?
2,000.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, an electric 4,500. That's based on our current usage.
Yes,
Buildings insurance.
I don't anticipate a 2 or 3% increase. It's normal.
So why don't we just plug in what we had for last year?
980, 985.
Yeah.
No,
Same with the buildings IT contractual.
oh, yeah.
Right, because I don't have a quote for the IT study. I think it's going to be in the $2,000-ish range.
Right,
Um,
but this is for ongoing services.
so I think depending on when I get that quote done, I'm going to try to sneak in the payment into this year
Okay,
and then budget mod it for the current year.
So do you want to budget 2,000?
2,600 for IT contractual. Um,
Our workers' comp, that number, that $6,000 number
mhm.
can probably be lowered slightly because we're seeing with perma. And there's the 2% increase. There's a 2% increase, but we pay it early, so we get a 2% discount, so it's not going to,
Do you think it's gonna be the same as last year?
I would say, I would budget 5 on the safe end.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we go back to engineer contractual? Let me have a second.
Yeah.
I misread Matt's initial email. I'm looking at it again right now. He had 19 for March 23 to June 23. If we would like to go that route, so that would be pulling that forward into. And then then his projection for June 23 through June 24 was 24.5. Which we can, I had assumed he was looking at. Now, I think the reason he was proposing that is because they're already anticipating being here to locate some water and sewer infrastructure in that time frame. But, and so this would be for the field evaluation. We can try to look at the breakout that he has here. I can also go back to him and see if we can do other things. The field investigation, he said, is 12.5. And he was putting, I don't remember what it was in the bucket of design criteria, it was another 6,500. Unfortunately, the next part is 24.5 for drainage area evaluation. It's all their kind of math, their models and digitization.
I want to shove that off in case we do piggyback with Ulysses on this CDBG grant.
Okay.
They're looking at
We're gonna do another one of those.
I don't know if it's CDBG or CFA, but
We
they were
did
looking,
this in the-
they were looking at a grant application that they were going to get to for a while. So, yeah, let's see if we can.
We could go with just like the 12.5 now for field investigation when they're only up here. And then I can add, like, his plan was initially to have that in before in this current budget season. And then maybe we could punt on the next one and wait to see what that is.
We have nothing budgeted. So
There's
whenever,
also that too. Yeah,
whenever it is,
or we could go with the like 12.5 for. I can get back in touch with Matt too. I had misread the idea of.
Let's leave it at 19 in the budget. Let's get back to Matt. Matt, I think is aware, but I'm not 100% sure that he knows that Ulysses is looking at a larger grant.
Okay,
And we would piggyback on. And let's see if that changes his timeline. And tell him that we'd like to keep it in the 15 or less range for this upcoming budget year. Even if that means that 24 becomes a little bit bigger. Because that would get absorbed by the grant if they get it.
yeah. I'll get back in touch with him. I'm gonna. Just to say that, so we're looking for 15 or less this budget year. I'll have to see what parts. Can be done before that 24.5 comes through, and see if we can't move things around a little bit more. It's possible we could pull two things together, pull them forward and find some space. I'll also ask him when he was anticipating the field investigation and where we might be able to land that money. Because that would be a nice chunk for that 50 in that 15K range. But I don't know if you can, if that makes sense to do it after the June start. So I'll follow up with him. I'll keep you CC.
Okay. This is move workers down to 5, right? 1620.47 is telephone. our webmaster. They haven't come back to us for an increase, have they?
Also, that's the lines of the.
Yeah, EMS just got a nice little facelift on their page. That was, I think, just part of it, as long as it's like within the general structure of the existing website.
That's great.
Yeah.
They're super on.
Central garage equipment, that's DPW equipment, 7,000. 10,000 in building repairs for the overhead doors, right? DPW contraction. Fine.
We wanted to do the training one. He wants,
Yes, so what's he want to do for training?
he wants to do more training for the guy. Like, he would like to go to the Nikon Public Works conference. It's in October.
I've been trying to encourage him on that front, at least. I think he personally could get more exposure to more things. Outside of that, I don't know what he's got in mind for the rest of the crew.
Well, that's the biggest one, because that's like our conference. It's
Right.
The hotel. Yeah, and mileage, you know, you're
Right.
doing a lot of stuff, so. Yeah,
Okay,
because we did look up how much it was. And he did want to do other training for the other.
There's a couple of relatively new folks on the crew.
Right.
okay, training, fuel. Liability and building insurance. DPW workers' comp. More phones. Municipal association dues. And then the big one, police. So the police line shows payroll increases. This includes. The reason why it's as large an increase from last year as it is because our second full-time officer who came on last summer. We are paying more than we had budgeted for a second full-time officer. So we've seen an increase overall there. And that line also includes a third full-time officer starting September 1. So actually, it's not including the first quarter of our fiscal year. We don't have anyone lined up. Joe has done a good job. If you see the anticipated expenses, he's done a good job of managing the payroll. So we probably are coming in under budget this year. But we'll have a full year with 2 full-time officers at a higher pay rate, and 3/4 of next year, if we are able to hire that third full-time officer at the pay rate that we brought on the second full-time officer last summer.
We figured it out. I'm good budget. Some of them are $30,000.
Questions on that particular payroll? I know Joe's talked to Vicky and Keith about it. I talked to Joe about it a little bit, trying to figure out how to massage that number. But I think planning on a September 1 start. It seems like a long way away from now. It's probably right. If we do hire someone sooner, then we'll rely on Joe being under budget all the time to keep us close.
He does a really great job in this.
And so with all that in mind, I think if I remember correctly, the idea of a third person hired is to basically actually fill shifts. It's not that where we talk about sometimes with EMS where it's like we've got a lot of overtime, we'll see that go down. This is actually kind of net new shifts getting covered, and that's important. We're not able to cover what we're hoping to have right now.
Yes and no. So it's covering shifts that we're struggling to cover, but also covering shifts that are currently covered by part-time.
Okay, it's a little bit of both.
But what we're paying the part-timers is less than what we would pay full-timers.
Okay.
We are. We're not Cuba Heights, but we are moving in the direction of what I would call real salaries for police officers. We used to be in the $20 to $22 an hour range for a police officer. Now we're in, which is about 40,000 a year. Sheriff's deputy's base is 75, IB's base is 87. So to be competitive, especially at a time when we can probably attract qualified officers from other departments, you've got to be in the 70-ish range. It's still not you guys, and those guys are making 90 to 110, so we're not going to try to play that game. But at 45, 50, 55, the kind of people that Joe wants to hire. At 70. you can get that way.
And he remains. Unfortunately, he feels like all body.
Also, we should have rolled in there with the part-time, benefit. Which also means I can have to do the or something. I still feel kind of.
New conversation with this person. Police equipment is just that, small equipment, reserves, police contractual is a bit of a catch-all for Joe to spend money on things like training. We have a separate training line, but it's relatively small. So we can do training, so we can do other programs in the police department. Police fuel, police vehicle maintenance, slight increase. Police insurance, that workers' comp?
For the cards.
Police insurance, police training, that's dedicated training. They'll use some contractual money for other trainings. Police workers' comp, there it is. More phones. Remind me, Vicky, what Joe has in police equipment versus small equipment.
Small equipment we use for, ammunition. It's whatever. We just separate, when I've always done things, when I've always done equipment, I consider that big stuff, like when you buy the gun, that's equipment. Where the small equipment, sometimes you put holsters, vests, stuff like that, that's smaller stuff. We can combine them if, it doesn't really matter,
A little bit redundant,
but
it's okay for now.
cheap for everyone, I think we started with cheap for us.
Let's see, police uniforms and vests. And traffic control.
Now that's split basically between police and DPW, that's where we take all the signage from, whether they do the pedestrian buddies or the signs for the crossing guards, stuff like that, but also the signs that the DPW put up. And I know Justin and some talking about the bunch of street signs that need to be replaced, like street name signs.
You might have mentioned.
Okay. But are we on just that they need?
I know when we were out and about Friday night, we were noticing how dark the crossing area is between Garrett's and going across to where the Napa used to be.
Really?
It's because the delivery truck took out a light.
Yeah, and it's not going to be replaced or it is going to be
We
replaced?
replace as soon as we can find that light.
Okay. I was just wondering if maybe we couldn't purchase some, I know they make crosswalk signs that strobe.
I saw that, someone mentioned that. Yeah.
We've asked,
I know, but I mean, that's a really,
Jesse's looking for the.
especially as you're coming down that knoll there and people are not always,
It's terrible.
it is a terrible crosswalk, but I was just, or
Solution,
can we get rid of it
solution,
and not have a cross there?
state DOT.
Oh, so you have to have a cross there. Cause I was gonna say we could,
Petition DOT to remove it. The solution is to shave back the corner and undo the Main Street project, and that's out of the street.
yeah, well, I would have liked to have shaved a lot on that street
That's-
project back in the day.
That's a grant.
But we're
That's a great-
sourcing the bulb,
So he needs to find the decorative pole. He needs to
Yeah.
find the replacement.
sourcing the pole,
Yeah,
okay,
which apparently is hard to find.
okay.
Maybe something that remind you about every few days, but it is hard to find. I think they've stopped making it. actually. Perfect. Anything else on the police department before we move on? We can basically scroll right past fire. Because
Okay.
that is all set in the fall with our contracts with the town. A 3520.4. Your management is the next non-fire line.
Oh.
That stays the same. That will be coming to an end here soon.
Oh, look.
Yeah, it usually ends in March.
Oh,
Okay.
We'll find out how they did this year.
Okay.
Safety inspection, this is code enforcement. Safety inspection personnel. Safety inspection equipment. Safety inspection contractual. Inspection training.
what's the 10K difference there between budgeted and expected for the personal?
3620.1.
Yeah,
The area about the expenses anticipated versus.
Right.
Yeah.
okay,
No,
yeah,
That's projected forward.
right, I don't know, I'll have to figure it out.
Okay.
For you. Because you're right, it should be on track before.
right.
Oh, okay.
Well, and also because if it's not, I know Tom has always makes a good case. Well, always makes a case. It seemed more strongly argued this time for rethinking his salary. So if there is 10K that we're budgeting that he's not getting, then that would be interesting to know.
I will look it up. Then.
Safety inspection legal. It would be specific to code enforcement. Safety inspection fuel. Ambulance. We would normally scroll right past this because this is also set in the fall, except that ambulance personnel, we have been monkeying with those numbers. I don't recall what was in the contract with the towns for this year. But the 706-174 includes some changes we are making ahead of next go around with the towns to include some staffing of the second ambulance during the day. I forget the number of hours, 20 to 30 hours a week, 21 hours a week.
Do you want to know what we can do?
Sure.
The town. The original proposal to down for the personnel. Was. Sorry. $747,000.
747.
was the original amount that we met. Because remember we included the EMS, but
So we're shaving back, or we're eliminating the concept for the moment of having a dedicated clerk to EMS for now, in favor of being able to staff a second ambulance a few days a week. Actually anticipate we could easily go over that 706 number, but that's what we're going to do for now.
so that doesn't include, the $90,000 to, so maybe we'll be okay with that.
You keep telling me.
Well, you know, I'm trying to.
Ambulance contractual, ambulance gas electric, ambulance training. Let's see.
Anyway, that's already been done.
Yeah, so we showed it to them and then they can hear and then,
Okay.
sorry, just.
All right, sorry. Yeah.
Let's see. Station maintenance, small equipment, physical, clothing, vehicle maintenance, fuel, insurance, office supplies, workers' comp. That workers' comp number also staying with PERMA? More phones, EMS supplies are expensive. Those are the drugs.
And they're getting.
Pager radio gear and the ambulance legal.
The legal,
Almost seems like
It almost seems like it might be healthcare.
I think the legal line was prior to any
yes.
discussion.
yes, it was.
Do you want
So
to-
ambulance,
I'll shut up.
happy to have you run the budget meeting if you want. I can take a break. I can take a walk. Ambulance legal, I think we should bump to 10. Anything else EMS that we want to discuss? Okay. Street administration, this is our DPW supervisor. Street maintenance, personal services, that's the rest of the crew. Supervisor is split out heavily between water, sewer, and general,
Okay.
as are the others, but in different percentages, depending on the person.
Dusty's getting more than 17K.
Yes. Let's see. Stipend, that's for the stipend is actually part of that contract. It's for the, so there's a supervisor and then there's like a shop foreman. So that would be a stipend that goes to the individual designated to be the number 2. Street maintenance contractual. And then there's that CHIPS line. That's the paving money, which we saw in revenue room. Bridges, we don't have any bridges.
We only have one. trying to name it.
The state of New York does not consider that a bridge.
Fair, but I assume that's where the 10K and the anticipated expenses was. Maybe that's in the wrong line. Or maybe that's not the right number.
Have we completed? Work on that yet?
Yeah, that's all done.
So it's all done.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I guess the question is, does it go there? I don't really care. But if it's not a bridge, technically, does it go in that line?
I mean, historically, that's where we would put money when we had grant funding flowing through the village for a bridge in the village, even though it's not a village bridge.
Right,
But I think that's just we didn't want to put it. I think
That's-
what we put them through.
that's fine.
The auditors haven't had a problem.
Okay.
I did discuss that with. So they're doing it.
It's great. Then I'm okay.
You want to put zero?
Yes. Yeah, the only thing now to work on there would be the retaining wall, but we're looking for grants for that now, so.
And I went over it 3 times this week and it looks lovely.
And you didn't fall in, so we're good.
No, it's not decrepit and nasty.
Let's see, snow removal. Snow removal equipment. So what are we getting in equipment there that's not coming out of our reserve?
Change the snow plow, because there's not enough in the DPW equipment reserve to do.
So that. I don't know about what's in the reserve or not. I will say the plows are very helpful. They are extendable plows so that they can kind of go down a whole street and kind of hit it in 2 passes instead of 4, but then still tuck it in and kind of get around in other areas. So they're finding a lot of value in speeding up their ability to clear snow. I don't know what the situation is with reserves. I haven't looked into that particular piece.
Their equipment reserve is you completely provide it in the park that you ship out. So there's no money, and then. Trustees anticipating buying another truck in 23-24 that they're going to use a plow for.
So. I thought they had. A lot more than 0. The water reserves didn't have much.
Yeah, neither than.
Yeah, I had as of November last year, the last one I had was 61.
There's one in December, but we didn't pay the bill until January.
I see.
So. I don't have the 12/31.
But we're supposed to add another 50K in May, but I guess that's not,
Right.
this is still, it's always kind of everything's ahead of itself.
So what about, so what did we allocate in last budget year to that equipment line? To reserves?
55.
Any of you not added that in yet?
No, because generally we wait until, after we've been the April bank statement, to see where we are.
So there's gonna be 50.
Right.
I don't anticipate. I don't hear what I'm just saying. I don't anticipate they're not enough in our general fund to take care of all of our. general.
But we've already budgeted for 50, so we need to be using the 50 number.
Okay, so with that, then, there will be about 50,000.
So
And I
is correct.
okay, and I've also got. I think I might have messed up some of the math here too. Oh, no, that's what I was. Because so what I have, and this is me kind of guesstimating, but was paying off. The balance that we had, I took the balance that we had in November, which might be off, minus what we paid for the new truck. Plus the 50, minus what I think we could sell the truck for, but maybe we haven't gotten around to that yet.
Right. And
It seemed like we had plenty in there.
So what Dusty told me a couple weeks ago was they ordered the plows won't be shut in until May or something like that, so he's gonna push them off, he's gonna push them off to the next budget season. So we have this money because they aren't gonna get it. And then he's anticipating buying a new water truck in 2024.
Right. No, I get that.
But we talked about that too, because that line is right now it's technically negative $100, and what we're gonna do that. And 40,000 we're going to spend. so
Right.
That's on the front truck. Because. he
Right,
didn't-
so I was looking at like getting about 12.5 in additional reserves. Or I mean, I guess it doesn't have to go in reserves, it could just be in the line. And that's-
That's generally a question I always present to once the truck is sold, the general rule is sale of equipment goes into our general fund, not gonna go in reserve. Not gonna change.
No, right, well, that's, I think. Part of the whole puzzle here is. I'd like to propose getting to a point where when we sell something, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, it's. Six one way, half a dozen other, but like. When I think about it from a budgeting standpoint, I think of selling it goes back into the equipment kind of line conceptually in my mind at least.
When did we stop doing it? 5 years ago? 5 years ago, we stopped doing
I mean, we can go the other way, but then we just have to budget more. It's just all,
it.
it's,
It just basically goes to fund it and. you know.
So let's not get
Yeah.
sidetracked. So, why is there a compelling reason, except dollars aside, is there a compelling reason to buy the plows out of general and not out of reserve?
I don't think, I would,
There's money in the reserve.
There is, it's $50,000.
Oh, there's 50,000. Right. Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, I think I would do it out of reserve. I think well, the only reason I would think is that I have not, my budgeting planning, I've been trying to get up to date with Dusty on placement schedule has been more focused on each truck, assuming that little things that we add onto trucks don't amount to much, but we could also start reserving on a little bit on the higher end and have more buffer for, because there always does end up being a plow or a salt spreader or something. And maybe we could just start reserving a bit more to kind of cover those things.
All right, let's hold that thought.
I can also chat more with Dusty on. I mean, I've got kind of like a 10-year plan here, but sounds like a really specific, detailed 12-month plan is in order now. So I'll work with him on that.
You want to move the 16 grand now?
For the moment,
Oh,
we're going to circle back to it in about 45 seconds.
yeah, yeah.
All right, snow removal contractual. At 12, street lighting, 24. Sidewalk contractual. Now, last year we put 20 in for kind of sidewalk maintenance. I don't know that we used any of it.
We didn't do any this year. We didn't get to it with having only 3 folks. We do have plans to get up to the conservatory in this budget year.
Do we have a cost estimate on that?
Don't think so. But I can see if Dusty's got something off the top of his head.
Because I would like to, well, this is a question. How do we feel about not putting in 20, putting in some smaller number in sidewalk contractual in this next budget year?
All right.
I mean, I want to continue to fund it conceptually,
Right.
but if we allocated 20 and didn't use it, I want to kind of get a sense of how much should we actually spend every year maintaining sidewalks? Because new sidewalks should be grant money,
Yeah.
Right.
but maintenance should be what? 10-ish
I
a
was gonna
year?
say, can we have that to 10?
No, I don't know. I guess I was hoping to find out.
Let me get with Dusty on that too. Any other year, I would be fine with it. We talked with the conservatory folk, they're going out against grants for improvements for that building. And I don't remember exactly how it integrates, but they have asked us to make sure that we get sidewalk up there. Like we already said, that's what we wanted to do. We kind of gave them a handshake that is going to happen. So we can go back to them and understand exactly what they need and what timelines are looking at, but maybe we don't have to. I would like to start with talking to Dusty about what he thinks the budget might be for that.
As long as we're talking about that, can I ask the question? What's the anticipation of the second transfer for sidewalks up the trailer park? But I thought they were gonna put them in and we were gonna be responsible. Okay, all right.
What we're looking at is getting grant for sidewalks from farmers market to Seneca Road.
Right, I knew.
Right.
I knew.
That's when we're gonna need.
Okay. So you want me to put 10 in final?
Yeah, we can pretend as a placeholder, is that okay?
That's fine, a placeholder, and I'll get back to it, Dusty.
Off-street parking, do we have any plans for parking lot work? Anyone?
We're not thinking about it.
I feel like that was paid not too long ago.
It wasn't long, not too long ago, we were.
Definitely not.
Well, it's, I don't know.
Not like, right, when we're looking at. Here's the farmers market, here's the.
Sure. Thanks.
It's just, I actually don't, I just don't. Great,
Yeah, that was repaid not too many years ago.
okay, fantastic.
So we'll leave off-street parking zeroed out for now. Okay, so next on the list is TCR. They always ask for a little money. A new line for Three Falls Local Development Corporation,
Trumansburg Community Rec is what?
TCR, sorry, Trumansburg Community Rec. That's the not-for-profit group that's looking for sports fields, and recreation areas, mainly sports fields. They had conversations with INHS about using some of the open space up at Alvins, but that seems to be maybe not progressing. But I think they have their eye on some other properties, but
I think taxpayers are already holding money for them, aren't they? To the tune of $300,000.
yeah, but school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are.
TCR is looking for a lot more than a pool.
Well, look all you want. I'm just saying that tax money is tax money, and we have already put aside $300,000. I mean, not to quibble over 500, but it really is the crux of the thing is taxpayers have put aside $300,000 for that particular.
I mean,
Right.
I would say take that up with the school. I feel like as this board, I'm very strongly inclined to help support community rec for $500 is a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the budget.
That's just a,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess philosophically we have to decide that it's part of the reason why we got involved with the Camp Garden thing is if we're going to support rec programs. Not just for youth, but certainly that seems to be the
okay,
greatest need.
okay, yeah, that's good logic. It's not a hill I want to die on, so. That's good.
And speaking of youth, there's the youth commission. I don't know. Ben Carver has had any other discussions in the last 2 days with anyone, but. You know, there does probably need to be a rethinking of how we run our rec program. I think. Conversations I've had with Caitlin is that we're at a good place now where the village and the town maybe should be running its entire program on its own. Without Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Didn't we do that before? Cornell has always been in the.
Cornell Cooperative Extension has always been a part of this youth commission program. And
Oh,
it's-
is this,
I'm gonna
I'm
try
sorry,
and jump in here.
Are we talking about the
Yes,
summer
ma'am.
rec program or just the overall?
All of it.
Okay,
Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, it turns out it's actually quite difficult to hear anything on Zoom. As an FYI, this is a struggle, but I couldn't help but jump in on this one. So the difficulty with moving to a full town village system is that right now CCU covers about 30 to 40,000 in benefits, and the county covers about 25,000 in programming. So it's not quite as simple as the strategic question would make it out to be. But I did want to confirm that number should stay the same for now for budget purposes. Without a program manager, we will likely see some money back in this current budget year, but hopefully for the next one, we'll be looking at the same.
so Ben, this is entire youth programming. This is the
So-
entire youth programming. Does it count the school thing in the summer? Is that
So it
included?
counts some of what Tom Major used to run.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Does that
It's
include that?
not affiliated with the school at all, but it is generally at the school.
Right, right. Now, when I was president of community council, we got a significant amount of money. And I mean, I'm talking thousands and thousands of dollars from United Way to help run that program. I mean, it
Yeah,
was
we
up
still get that.
over $20,000. Do you still get that money?
Not nearly that much. It's now 3,500, I believe. Maybe it's 37.5, but it's much smaller.
Yeah, considerably smaller. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, budgets get tight at the top and they pass everything down to us at the bottom. That's the
Yeah.
nature of the game.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just wondering how much. Yeah, from that to nothing is a lot, because those checks were big that came from United Way for that.
Yep. It is. I mean, it is nice. They actually double pay us. So they pay 3,500 for summer rec specifically, and then another 3,500 for the youth commission more broadly.
Mhm.
It ends up being 7,000, but it's still, it's lower.
Mhm.
That's right. Ben, is this any louder or better for you?
Hold
I'm
on.
gonna try something, Ben. How's that?
2 seconds.
God, this juggle is difficult. It's good. Part of it's on my end. It's not anything you can do on your end. It's my internet, so I'm bouncing between phone, speakerphone, and then computer, and it's just a mess on my end more than you.
I think we might have had a wrong microphone on here as well.
I think you switched it to owl and not to these microphones potentially.
Yeah, you are louder. You are louder.
So this is better?
Yeah.
Okay, so youth commission contractual will lose their. Okay, library contractual, Marcia, go.
Yeah, I don't think we should give the library any money. I love the library. I've utilized the library, but I don't think village residents should pay 3 times for the library. They pay from their school taxes, they pay from their town and county taxes, and they pay from their village taxes. I would love to see that $5,000 go to our T-Bird rec program, because that money is so desperately needed. We have an overabundance of families that use that program every year. And maybe it could free up some money for scholarships for more kids to attend that. I think that's something that's really crucial. I know the bottom line of the library, they're not hurting. They have significant dollars to support all of their programs. They have wonderful benefactors of the library. And I mean, I would be all for it if they were crawling on the ground, needing the money really badly in order to make programs function. But they don't. But we could really use that $5,000 to make the T-Bird rec program function, so I'd like to see. It's just of my opinion that the $5,000 would be more beneficial for more children in the community if we took that money and put it more towards the T-Bird rec program. Just my 2 cents.
So just as a side note, we can't directly take money and put it towards the rec program. For summer rec, we could allocate it to the youth commission, and then the youth commission makes a recommendation to the town, who then acts as the fiduciary agent for the youth commission. So it's a little bit of a weird.
Okay, so however, we would need to send that money so that it benefits more
Let's
children.
not confuse too many things. I'm not in favor of doing much with the youth commission right now, while they cannot hire a program manager because they want to pay a master's degree candidate $18.
Yeah.
I am in favor, and I realize it's not an easy lift. And maybe the LDC is the conduit. But I am in favor of completely taking over all recreation programming and running it between the village and the town. Now, that may be a multi-year project. But I don't love, everything I hear tells me that the structure and the model of the current youth commission vis-a-vis the town and Cornell Cooperative Extension is broken.
Yeah, I agree.
And if they fix it, and we don't want the headache of running a program, fine. But if they don't fix it, and the town of Ulysses, which is moving in a direction of being very forward thinking with recreation, if they want to hire a program manager and they want to run it, and they just want us to help split the cost, I think that's the future of recreation in this part of the Finger Lakes.
Okay,
So let's not confuse the two, because
I guess I was confused because when I was president of community council, those checks directly went to the village office.
structures change.
Okay,
Well, I shouldn't say it's changed or hadn't changed. We changed the way the money was routed a few years ago.
Okay.
Had the town be the primary
Okay.
conduit instead of the village.
so therefore it's just not as simple as saying, let's use this $5,000 for
Right.
something else that we think maybe could benefit more children versus.
Well, the library conversation is its own conversation.
Yeah, right.
How much do we either philosophically or from a PR standpoint, how much do we want to be supportive of the library that exists inside the village limits or not? That's a conversation to be had. What that does or doesn't do with the money that we do or don't spend, let's not say we're trading.
Okay,
Library
I
money
just
for
didn't
something
know
else.
how that whole,
should have a-
the flow of money went.
We should have a library conversation if you want to have a library conversation, but it should be specific.
I just think we already paid for the library. And I think this, it's another thing that, and I have done this, I have made all my own personal donations to the library to support certain programs, and I'm sure other people do too. And I just feel that they have a very healthy bottom line, and we already pay in our town taxes, and we already pay in our school taxes. I mean, I think on my school tax, it was almost $35 for the added library tax.
Did they get a large bequest recently?
Yes, they did. The library did get a very large donation from a benefactor that passed away.
Don't these entities typically come in to explain their requests?
We get a letter.
Yeah, that are you listening?
And you know what? I think if we're gonna give money to an entity as well, they should show us their books and show us their needs. I mean, certainly when you go and you,
So to be clear, we're not giving money to anybody. We are contracting with these entities for services that they provide to our residents. That's how it's structured. That's why the letter exists. The request is made that this is the money, this is the way that works for TCR, for the village, for the library, for the museum. Meals on Wheels, that's still in there.
Yes.
Net, a couple more lines down.
so how does it go from just what this says requested, how is that contractual?
Because legally it has to be a contract. We can't give anyone money.
Right,
Right.
So
okay.
they send a letter of request and we agree, and I sign a piece of paper that says we will pay you. That's. a
okay,
contract.
so that makes it better. Okay,
And they sent it to him.
And we can discuss the numbers certainly, and or if we want to or not support. And honor these requests, I don't know, answer these requests, however we want to structure the words, but. I mean, the library does an incredible amount of good in the community. If anything, I feel like the numbers that we give to TCR and. Well, I've got my own beef with museum, but it almost seems low, but I also could be open to the idea of changing that number. I don't think I would want to say if we don't give, again, I see this as, I understand the point that the library gets money from a bunch of different taxing entities.
Right.
I still think that as the village, as an entity, I see value in us supporting the library.
I don't think taking away the $5,000 is not supporting them.
In what way? Like, I mean, that seems like directly removing some amount of financial support. I could see about changing it. The flip side is I could also be honestly decide that we don't do this for anybody. And the whole thing has kind of, sometimes I think, especially when you're on the board, say, we look at every kind of dollar here. Is the municipality the right place to be kind of donating funds, though it's not a donation?
Right. Per se.
Yeah, I think there's a strong argument to be made that everybody comes to governments with their handout, and we should reset.
And to me,
But I'm not-
I feel like your money should go to. Like I said, I love the library. I use the library. I used to take the girls every Thursday to their toddler thing and story time that they have. So I have contributed to that. I contribute every year to the food pantry. I think people need to take their money and put their money where they find the most value. And I'm not saying that the library is not valued, it is, but it just really has a significant healthy bottom line. And I just feel like the village could use that money right now.
So I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I think the counterpoint is the touchy-feely part. It's the culture, it's the feel of the community, it's all the things that make people want to move here. Part farmers market, street planter boxes, library on Main Street, all of those things, and whether it's 5,000 or 4,000 or 2,500 is not really as relevant as the financial and honestly somewhat symbolic support.
I do understand the symbolism, but I do know that I've been approached by, and this has been in a conversation for years of people saying we already paid for it. It's not like we're not supporting it. We are supporting it because we're already paying for it. Twice. And then the village taxpayers are paying for it 3 times.
So I have a question, because I'm also a taxpayer in the village.
Right.
So I'm thinking about this though, and I'm wondering if there's a correlation between when we see that, something is split out within our budget, one work is split out in 3 different ways. Like, so the library, in order to make its budget, is taking from 3 different lines. So even though I'm a citizen, like if I'm, let's say it's $100, let's pretend that I pay $100 towards the library. That's just what I pay, but they're treating the 100 that I'm paying as part of my Ulysses and part of my village, part of my school. Just feels different. If I'm like, oh, it's $100 for me to have a library, and they're taking some of that $100 and they're saying that's part of you living in Ulysses and that's part of you living in the library.
Yeah, but it's not, we're paid separately.
I know, but it's still sort of, I'm looking at their budget. Just want to say it out loud.
Yeah. Can we lower it?
I'm just going to jump in quick. The librarian, I'm sure, would love to come and talk to us. So if we want to ask about what specifically the village support does as a specific amount of money, it'd be very easy.
Question in my mind what they support. Their programs are wonderful. I want to see their.
No, I mean our money specifically, not what they do, right? But we have a contract with them. I know this is weird that I know this, but I know that the town specifically supports, I think it's after school program, or it's like there's a specific program that the money is attached to. I don't know what we do, but I think it would be worth talking with them. I also think it's worth noting that, like, you had talked initially about trading the 5,000 for youth rec or youth programs in general. And I think the library primarily does, like, for a fairly large cohort of children, is the after school program. It is the summer program. It is the summer rec program in a meaningful way. And I think it's really more a semantic difference than anything else where the money we give goes, whether it goes to the town or the library, because it's really supporting youth programming in any case. But without splitting hairs, I would say we should just ask the librarian to come and we can talk about it with her.
Or I could just request a copy of the annual report. They should have a budget report.
Yeah, I don't know if they would divvy it up though.
Why
It would be in their
wouldn't they?
request.
It's supported by tax dollars, so those numbers should be available, right?
But you won't show, it won't.
No, but it wouldn't like,
This won't take
it wouldn't earmark our money specifically.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I would like to see that if we wanted to make a meaningful change. I also wonder if you could send around all those letters from all the different people, that would be helpful. I don't expect those to go deep per se, because I don't think in the past we've had much conversation about it, but if we're gonna change something, I'd be.
I mean, I don't want to undermine and say that this is not a valuable asset to our community. It certainly is, but it's also very well supported. You know what I'm saying? If they were going to lose programming, or they weren't going to be able to offer this, that, or the other thing, or they weren't going to be able to buy books, I certainly could, I would raise that $5,000. But they are a very healthy, they're just, you know, I just don't find the need for that amount of money. I think if we could half it and give them a country, I mean, you know, majority rules.
Well,
That's just my
I'm
opinion.
willing to take have a healthy debate about all of these requests. I mean, I certainly feel passionately that especially outdoor recreation is very underserved right now.
I agree.
We have no facilities that aren't owned by the school district. However, I'm also aware that, you know, this is a request from the library. So again, I don't think, right, we're not talking about they requested $5,000 so we can repurpose $5,000 somewhere else. This is
Right.
right straight. If we wanted to add to, you know, TCR, that's a different discussion. It sounds like we can't just move that $5,000 up a few lines because they're not requesting that. But I'm certainly willing to, you know, put some of this stuff under the microscope. But I would also say I'm also willing to invest more in the outdoor recreation, but it sounds like we can't for some of these. Can we decide without them asking, just hypothetically, Trumansburg Community Rec, if we said, you know what, we want to give you $20,000, they have to request that, right? We can't.
It should come as a request and we don't have to fulfill the entire request. Why don't we, I don't have the corrected spreadsheet. It's not coming up.
I haven't put it in there. Do you want me to put it in there now?
What spreadsheet are you working in?
I work on the one I have, mine, and then when I'm done with it, I put it in the Dropbox.
Oh,
So I can do that right now if you'd like
don't
me
worry
to.
about it now.
Okay.
Do it at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Can one of you reach out to Laura and see if she can come to the March 13th meeting? Talk about the library requests specifically, what the village's dollar goes to specifically for programming at the library.
And did I understand correctly that the village, because it's a contracted service, could say we want this money to go, we could designate it, like the town designates after school program? Is that what I understood someone saying?
I don't know.
Okay, because that's interesting.
I don't know if the library would accept that or if that's just what they happen to be using the town money for.
Okay,
That'll be a question there for.
okay. Thank you.
and then confirm that and then remind me so I get it on the agenda.
Okay.
All right, museum, that's the historical society contractual 500.
And why do we give that money?
Because they requested it.
Is there a, yeah, I'd like to request a couple $100. Just that. There again, that's another entity in Trumansburg who has a very healthy bottom line.
Sorry, which one did we get onto?
The Historical Society.
Oh, they do?
Yes, they do.
Very.
So, I think they can probably afford to.
Yeah, I think $500 has always been mostly symbolic. The village's symbolic support of the preservation of our local history. There was a long conversation a few years ago about pulling that when the Historical Society Board at the time decided to wade into politics for the first time in their history. That almost ruined the relationship between the village and the Historical Society permanently, but we got past it. I'm not.
That one must have been.
Yeah, I don't feel we should be giving them money either. They have lots of it.
I feel like my 2 cents is if we wanna. I have a hard time kind of picking choosers and winners and losers here. I feel like one option is just to zero all this out, and I think that at least is consistent across the board. I think the other option is if we're gonna do it for a couple of places, I don't see this as meaningfully changing anyone's bottom line. Theirs or ours.
Exactly.
I think this is symbolic, and if we're gonna do something, I wanna symbolically support all of these, and it doesn't have to be much. Which is why I could be open to the idea of reducing the library and bringing it a little more in line with some of these other ones. I still would like to hear Laura, kind of give a little talk about what that does. But I could say going to 500 for all of these might be a place to just.
I think that sounds wonderful, and it's like a fair compromise.
Yeah, that's not bad. So if we take just, so let me just.
Because it's a side note, is that sometimes having the buy-in of municipality, your supporters opens you up to more grant possibilities. Right,
Sure.
so for them to say that we're supported by the village by $500, it doesn't.
Well,
matter
if that's your
if
explanation, then certainly I would
Yeah,
listen to
right.
that. But that's another thing that they are also in a position where they can apply for a lot of grants that other organizations can't.
Yeah,
Because it's very well supported by the state under the educational umbrella.
sure.
I mean, and me personally, for the amount of money we're talking about here, I don't even really need it to do anything meaningful, honestly. Just to give $500 to some of the places to be just like, this is a token of the village's involvement in these important, organizations in our community. I'm fine with that. And if it opens up new doors for them in some way, then all the better.
Okay, so you're saying split it all up and give them the same amount.
So. Who am I missing? There's TCR, the library, the historical society, and there's Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
Food net.
Those are the only 4.
Mhm.
So the total of that is 7,000.
Whereas right now it is,
Well,
Right now it's 7,000.
7,000,
5,000
5,000 goes to the library.
oh, okay,
6.
Yeah,
so it stays the same, it's just split up differently.
So we could say. I kind of do like the idea of establishing a. They come to us with a request. I do kind of like the idea of establishing a maximum donation, a maximum contractual payment.
Sorry, I just remembered something.
We need, I kind of like the idea of establishing a maximum quote unquote contractual payment that we will give to local market profits, of which we are not a participating entity. Yeah, so farmers market is technically, which the LBC were a participating entity. Youth commission was a participating entity. But if we're not a participating entity, then we will consider the request, but there's gonna be a cap, so that way we don't end up in a situation where we are now, where it's, well, you get 500, but you get 5,000, but you get 25 else. That feels very arbitrary.
And that's true. I mean, at this point, it does kind of behoove, it behooves the person to ask for $10,000. We haven't said no yet to anybody, right?
Question, what if they want to develop a program that would then be a service? Could they ask for more than the cap for a special thing?
Ask, but I'm thinking more from the
Yes.
village's
We're just gonna
perspective.
set a cap.
No, could they still request, like, we are opening up a new program that we're requesting funds from the village in your next budget year to offer the service. Can they still do that? And
I mean, they can do whatever they want. We're not preventing them from
well,
doing it.
you could say yes.
But what I'm now, after what Ben said, what I'm leaning in the direction of is the village should not be. The village should be a grant recipient, not a grant maker.
Yeah,
And so whether it's 500 or 50,000 is sort of irrelevant. It's, do we as a village have the resources to be a grant maker? If the answer is no, then we should be very limited with how much we give to any entity. And it sort of feels like $1,000 is about right. $1,000 is, if you ask for 500, we can say yes or no. If you ask for 5,000, we can say, well, we love it, but we can only give you 1,000.
So you're saying 1,000 is the cap?
I'm thinking it should, that no, 500 feels meaningless, right?
Right.
It feels like purely symbolic. 1,000 is still mostly symbolic, but it's not nothing.
Right.
Is that just so we don't have to say no to people though? It just feels like almost a cap is arbitrary in a way. It's just like keeping us from making enemies. You know, we just want to try to keep everything even. I mean, let's just go back to community rec, right? Just hypothetically, that we just bought a piece of land. It's technically just outside the village, but all of your village kids and residents are going to use it. Will you chip in? Let's say for some reason we had money. Will you chip in 25 grand to totally change recreation in the village? I wouldn't hate to say like, well, we got a cap. You know, that could be a monumental thing to be part of, even though it's not really a participating, so to speak. I would hate to kind of.
Well, I think something like that could be brought before the board in some other way, don't you think? If it was
Yeah,
something that significant?
Well, we've tiptoed our foot into being almost participating with TCR and having the 4 boards meetings and working through that. Like, there's nothing formal there. Maybe there's an MOU of just like we all work together on this. But I think, I mean, maybe that points actually to the fact that if you're going to ask for $10,000-$20,000, maybe we should probably be on the same page and have a little more structure around that. And we're trying to do something important here.
Well, very much like Kent Garden, we wouldn't just be throwing money around in the hopes that becomes something. We need to be a stakeholder when we're talking about that kind of money. I think the annual sing for your supper handout process that we've developed with some of these local organizations. You know, every few years we have the same conversations, like deja vu all over again. And I think we can't bind the future board's action, but look, we've been doing it the same way for the last 2 decades. If we shift in the direction of something that is more uniform in our treatment of the organizations, and maybe that carries forward for a couple of decades.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think that's a good idea, Ben.
I'm going to jump in here and disagree. I think strongly. I think as a village, we have strayed generally from being a cultural organization. But I think we have a role, right? It's the reason behind the ETC. It's the reason behind the events that we're throwing. It's the reason behind the banners. It's the reason behind the farmers market. All of these things are attempts on our part to play a positive role in the culture of the village, which is a tricky thing. It's certainly not our primary objective. But I think it's fundamental to what we do, right? I mean, we're looking at a $140,000 increase in the police budget this year, and we're quibbling over $500 here and there. It seems absurd to me. I think it's important that we reemphasize that we are stakeholders, right? I'm sure once upon a time these organizations came with a specific request that we read before these meetings. And I think we could go back to something like that. But I don't think we want to give up our role as a positive cultural force in the village, right? To abdicate that, I think, is really a mistake that's hard to walk back from. At this point, I know the town will continue to make these payments to the library. I know, right, they've taken over rec. I don't want to abdicate our role as a village, like as a specific entity when it comes to social, cultural issues. I think it's really important that we do this. I think as far as balancing the numbers, I think there's a reason that the library gets 5,000, right? They do a lot. They run a lot of programs. They have a lot of salaries. There's a reason that the Historical Society only gets 500. They're largely funded with grants and volunteers. It does feel a little bit disconnected from reality that they no longer come to us and they don't bring those requests in writing or anything like that. And I think maybe we should move back towards that. But I really feel strongly that we should not abdicate our role as like a force within the social and cultural fabric of the village.
No, I agree. We should give something.
So I hear what you're saying, Ben, and I guess my question is, are we abdicating our role as a force in the village culturally if we still give them money that doesn't matter to their bottom line anyway, because they're so well funded, as long as we give them something? Or does the actual does the actual dollar amount, which doesn't affect their bottom line because they're so well funded, does that somehow matter to us in whether we are being playing as large a role as we should?
I mean, I think it depends on their budget, right? I don't know, without having looked at their specific budgets and what the weight of this request is, right? Like, I don't know what the library does with this money. Like I was saying, I know that there's some monies that they do earmark for specific programs. I don't know if this is that, right? But if we're throwing our weight behind, for instance, the summer reading program, I think that's very easy to justify. And it's very easy for me to say, you know, as a village, that's an important cultural service for village residents that I'm happy to support with $5,000 of taxpayer money. If we are underwriting, you know, like a deferred payment from their endowment or something, that feels a little squishier. I don't disagree at all with the broader concept of having sort of a like cultural, you know, a cap, like you were saying, right? So that it's, you know, in the same way that we break out salaries and we look at salaries in general, and then we look at them within water, sewer, and the different budgets, right? We could do a similar thing with cultural spending, right? We could look at the ETC budget. We could look at the library budget. We could look at all of these things that are all sort of fall under this broader cultural category, and just have a look at that separately. That makes sense to me conceptually.
So we're gonna do that, then what we should do, which we never really did it in any real granular detail, but we did at least have them come and present their request. We should make it a stipulation, if you're gonna request funding from the village as a not-for-profit, your letter of request needs to be accompanied by your financials. And if a not-for-profit is not comfortable doing that, then we won't get a request from them. And if they are comfortable, then we'll take a look at their financials and be able to weigh the need of their request. I mean, is that sort of along the lines of what you were meaning by that last comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be fair, or at least like a programmatic budget, right? So maybe not an organization-wide thing, but if you're gonna, you know, if our funding is gonna stand up, and I keep using this as an example for absolutely no reason, but the summer reading program, then what does that programmatic budget look like? other funding lines, that kind of thing. But we could go either way, right? I mean, I honestly, if I was working in the historical society and you asked me to put together an organization-wide budget and, you know, a request that was too weighty and too lengthy and too time intensive, right? I doubt that a group of volunteers is going to take that time. So it's a little bit of a fine line there when we're talking about such small numbers. But I think at a minimum, you know, sending a written request that's fairly specific and includes at least a bare amount of budgeting data and what the purpose of the request is specifically, I think that's very reasonable.
Okay, well, let's think about it some more in terms of how we want to do this structurally going forward, but have Laura come to ask Laura if she can make the March meeting about the library specifically, and then between now and then we can think about whether we want to make something more formal with respect to how we fund, how we respond to requests for funding from all these organizations.
Yeah, I think seeing the ones we've gotten would be helpful too, to understand, is it just like a, please give me some money, or is there more in there that around? There probably isn't, but and that goes back to maybe there's a structure of like, please specify where you intend to use this funds, or maybe.
Yeah, it's the one sheet that says this is what we offer to the community, this is what we do for asking you from you. Like, it's a respectful cover letter for any grant request. We can send those to you.
Yeah, and maybe that's, you know,
Yes, we'll move it on to the whole board.
Sure.
yeah, maybe there's a opportunity to improve that, so we feel like we're getting the right information to make a good decision.
Okay. So to be continued on that part.
Good question.
Village historian, Sandy has agreed to stay on for another year. Thanks, Sandy.
Can I ask why the Historical Society doesn't pay for the village historian?
So villages are required by state law to have a historian.
Oh, okay.
We
That
have
answers
at-
that question.
we have at times not had one. But we're happy to have Sandy on board.
Yes, she's very good.
Contractual, let's keep that the same, Vicky.
Yep.
200, no 300.
You want to change it to 200?
It was 200 last year. Let's keep
Yeah.
it the same.
Okay.
Farmers market, this is spending of their budget.
Can I ask you a question about that? And maybe this is supposed to be darker. Why, in the last couple of years, is the farmer market not looking for grants? At all?
I don't know. Are they, what is, if their budget's making it work, I'm not trying to see them looking for grants, though, if there are grants that allow them to do things, I would hope they go after them.
Because I guess I thought from the discussion we had with them 3 years ago, that they were supposed to start working towards more self-sufficiency.
I had thought we had gotten there, that we had gotten back down to the 5,000 out of village that we were anticipating.
I have to go back and look at last year's and
When they're getting a 5,000 from the towns, this goes back to
now they are.
now 3.
Three.
So it's 5.
Yeah.
I'd
It's
have to
3.
look at the details of their budget. I didn't go over it.
That's another thing. Is cooperative extension involved in that anymore at all? No.
Not to my
No.
knowledge.
Right.
They were doing granting for like.
I was there at the teeny tiny little baby inception of the farmer's market, working with Deirdre, so I just was
Farmers
wondering.
market is now a village entity.
Okay, gotcha.
I was just curious, because I guess I thought that they were supposed to really be working even beyond that.
It would have to be us applying for the grants.
Oh,
Well, yes, I understand that, but it seems to me it would be on there, like Natalie's, since she is a paid person, that it would be on her to look for those grants.
It's not come up, and my impression was they'd gotten back to the dollar amount that we had.
I'll send you that information next week
But
to
yeah,
let you know where they are,
okay.
okay?
I have their budget too. I'll double check it, but.
Okay.
Okay, 8010.1 zoning, that's payroll.
Oh,
Wait, good job.
can we, so this is the other cultural, the TCC?
CTC,
Yeah,
GTC.
It's 7989.49.
I'm not sure they're expensive now.
Okay,
Because
what is,
well, I haven't, okay, I haven't put it in.
what does ETC have planned for this year, money wise? Keith?
I think continuing to support Winterfest. We've exactly established everything we want. I mean, there was talk about doing more with around the grid.
I have a question. Can we put out donation buckets prior to Winterfest in different businesses and places? We can't. We can't fundraise,
No.
or can individuals fundraise?
No,
No.
not if they're associated with the village in any way whatsoever.
Oh, holy Hannah. Okay. It's also
The
complicated.
chamber
isn't
can,
it?
the chamber can.
The chamber can?
They're your peeps.
Well, guess what?
And Winterfest itself, right, like, Cynthia Menino does that.
Right.
She's paid by the village, she can't fundraise.
Porch Fest.
No, she,
What's that?
Porch Fest main stage.
But the chamber could raise funds for
The
Winterfest.
chamber is a not-for-profit, a not-for-profit can always raise funds. The government can never raise funds.
Right.
A government employee or subcontractor can never raise funds.
Okay.
The village cannot be seen as ever raising funds of any kind ever.
So me as a representative of the village with the chamber, I couldn't be involved in that?
Correct.
I'd have to delegate that.
You'd
Or I'd have to-
you'd have to be 1,000 miles away from it.
Okay. Gotcha.
So since my mind pays attention to numbers, I'm remembering from committees and committee meetings, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we need to buy banners that are seasonal and replace the 150. So we did purchase, Vicky and I haven't done a good job putting in the expenses of what was spent for EPC last year, but it was 150 banners and some other things. So for the next year, it would be making seasonal banners so that we have a beautiful downtown all year and not just.
So we don't need to bump the 5,000.
We don't need to bump the 5,000. The only reason you might want to consider that, and I think it could be premature, is the investigation of the project of the green team, looking at green spaces, and if we want to buy more plants and flowers for those, or put in a cement compound table. But I think the planning in that is just this year, unless you still are thinking about signage of the gateways. That's the other major.
No, yeah.
So then you have 5,000, we'll get the banners and potentially increase snowflakes or winter lighting. In my estimation.
the banners were paid for in the previous budget year.
Yeah, so leave that the same way.
Okay.
Sorry, I do want to jump back to the department board real quick, so now they're pulled up their budget. Their budget is right around 20K, give or take. 5 of that is the village, which is what we asked them to get back to. 3 is Ulysses. And then I'm reminded by looking at what they have here, they've got music sponsorship and community sponsorship, which is where they've been focusing a lot of their efforts as far as students and fundraising. So they're actually bringing in almost 22 in revenue and going out a little over 20. They see themselves being in the green, but a little over $1,000. So that's kind of just a broad strokes of what the market does. If we want to go back to them and say 5 is too rich for us, we want to push that down further, they could look at grants or other sorts of forms of fundraising, but they tended to look more toward the individual fundraising from like it's not fundraising because it's sponsorship advocacy, but anyhow, that's how they've been approaching it, less on the grant side and more on the other side.
Yeah, that was my specific task to them in 2018, was get away from the grant stuff and go sell sponsorship.
And then the rest is all fees for vendors and so forth.
So the 21-22 bottom line, they were negative $1,351.
Okay.
As of right now, through December, they're negative 6,500, but that's hard to judge because they have all their vendors' fees coming in March and April.
Right.
So, and the music sponsorships come in March and April and May. So.
Right, they're always caught in the weird spot of
Yes.
their year.
Their cash flow is very
Their
different.
cash flow is totally
Yes.
bonkers for our
Yeah.
budget year.
But I just wanted to let you know where they ended up last
Okay,
year.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do know that, that board is very much on top of their finances now, which is also wonderful to see.
Okay. So where were we?
All right, zoning personal 8010.1, that's payroll, zoning contractual. Do we think there's a lot of EDR work coming in the June through May?
I don't think so. I think, if we can kind of move forward with the secret piece, we'll likely be talking about adopting zoning before then. And so at that point,
And then the next task is the next task for the committee before we get to writing.
the next task, my hope is that what we go through for this round of adoption with zoning, enough of it is reusable for the next round around, that we just kind of copy paste and move forward. It's gonna be adopt zoning every, year, 18 months.
But do you think there's a lot, I mean, what do we need for EDR, if any, in this next budget year?
I'm hoping none really. The short-term rental stuff, I'm assuming is gonna go all through Guy, because it's way too much, and he's got so many opinions. So I'm not anticipating anything through EDR after for this budget year.
So are we okay with zeroing out EDR for this year and making sure we have enough in zoning legal?
Yes. Yeah, and if we get, the only valuable thing I'm seeing that they've been, not the only, but the useful thing I can see going forward is their help improving the Word document, but even that, I think, once it's done well, hopefully we can kind of add and make small tweaks too, so. I think I could go with zeroing it, and if we get really stuck, we could add something the following budget year and probably wait until then if we really need to. We'll figure something out.
Okay, so let's zero zoning contractual. Okay, let's keep zoning publishing the same.
Okay.
And then let's keep zoning legal the same at 10.
Yeah.
That should be enough for guys, I think.
Okay.
Not for that. 50 hours.
So ask any question.
Oh, determined by the hour of the words.
Well, I hope he's fast time.
Still have a lot to say.
Need some stenography.
I mean, the short-term rental thing. I'm trying to kind of leverage what he's given us and not go back to starting from ground,
Right.
in the basement, but. He's certainly itching for someone to tell him to go spend a lot of time thinking about short-term rentals, which I don't know. Let's see how far I go.
He's itching for. I don't know what he's itching. All right, planning personnel, planning contractual. Have we given up the ghost on finding a planner?
I'm so sad about that, but yes. I haven't thought about it in a year, so I think that's probably your answer. There was a hot minute with Terry that was wonderful.
Well, I mean, the county is making noise for the first time about. There's a survey that I filled out for them a week or so ago. For Darby. And it was,
Okay.
what can the county do to be more helpful?
Yeah,
We've been asking them to be more helpful for years, now they're finally starting to at least pretend to pay lip service to it, so maybe there's some help there.
Yeah.
We need actual planning work.
I mean, the reality is we've kind of gone around it by using EDR. And we have a good relationship there, and if we find need for it, I think we should continue working with them in much the same way we kind of have EDR or MRB, if we need it, so. That might be the way around it, plus whatever we can get from the county.
Right, yeah, I mean, outsourcing things hasn't worked. I mean, when you look at how much the city of Ithaca spends on their city engineers and the employees there, I mean. So much more efficient outsourcing that, all of that on our end.
Well, especially when we don't have need for that much full time, right? Like it's hard to find. That's the problem with planner is we couldn't find someone who recently wanted a 20-hour planning job because that's a silly thing.
Okay. Anything we're anticipating major at the planning board? I haven't heard anything about the planning board in a while.
The only thing with the annex, that's coming, but the might affect the planning board. That's not moving in any direction, right? And there's no proposed major developments on the horizon. The planning board is.
Let's zero planning. We get stuck. We can,
What about contractual?
Planning contractual,
what was that 2004 last? Remind me.
Just two, but they spent twice that, or we anticipate them spending twice that amount. Do you want to know what they spent? What they spent?
Well, that was leftover EDR stuff from the comp plan, wasn't it?
It could be.
we can, yeah, like,
Remember off the top of my head. MRB for the compass. EDR for the professional services side of the, yeah. MRB for the planning board activities.
we're gonna do the stormwater.
That was, it's a little separate, okay. So that's what makes up what it was spent.
And let's zero planning contractual.
Okay.
Storm drainage contractual, that's pretty much. the
It also
same.
is there a legal?
Yes. Storm drainage contractual, we usually leave that the same every year.
Okay,
Garbage, there's community beautification.
You want to up that because I understood that there was gonna be a 10% increase in dumping fees.
For garbage,
Yes. Which would leave us at about 14.5, 14.3.
we have a recent quote, Lynn. Is that the one you're referring to, what you're referring? I don't have it.
let's leave it at 13, let's leave it at 13.5.
Okay.
I can double check that
We'll adjust next year, fees go up a lot.
though. Okay, okay,
Community beautification, we don't know.
And who usually handles that?
That comes to the county,
Oh, okay.
and the program hasn't been around or funded since COVID.
Oh, okay.
Can we talk about that for just 2 seconds? So in conversations with Mrs. Starkler, she's under the impression that, again, that $2,000 from the village is going to be basically given to Trumanburg community, that, what is it?
Take
care, sorry. So generally, it's been taken out of the DPW budget. Should we put it here instead?
Yeah, they're not a standalone organization. So the village has to purchase things for the village to use and volunteers happen to use it. That comes out of one of our other lines.
Okay, okay,
They're not a standalone organization to request money.
okay.
I was talking to somebody, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So can you clear that up with her? Or should
I've
I?
already told her we have $2,000 when she needs it. The
Okay.
village is making the purchase. We're not giving it to anyone.
Oh, no, I understand that. But I was just thinking as a budget line.
Can't put in a budget line for an entity that doesn't exist.
Okay.
They're not a legal entity. Can't put them in there.
Okay, well, I wasn't gonna put them in there. I was gonna put them under this community that we, the village, buys this stuff and then is a line we use to buy it. Okay, it's fine. Okay. Okay.
I just wanted to say that I was in conversation with someone that's very involved with the T-Bird, taking care of T-Bird organization. And I guess the wood planters are in very poor condition and need to be replaced.
I've already rebuilt them.
Huh?
I've already redone them.
They already rebuilt
Yeah, they
them?
have.
Because you know what,
Both
they're,
things taken care
that's bad,
They're taking care of, taking care of.
huh?
They're taking care of, taking care of.
They're self-watering apparatuses now.
Yeah, well, they're, the gem shop was offering to pay for the planters.
Someone volunteered time.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
it's all in the gem, it was in conjunction with them, it's good.
Yeah.
So we'll get you the rest of it.
Good.
We'll give you the rest of the story.
No, that's fine. That's all that I was
Yeah.
told, so I'm just trying to clarify
It's good.
what that was.
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Shade trees. Did we buy shade trees? Ben, do you
I think
remember?
that's the tree program. That's not actually shade trees. That's for the risk mitigation for the trees, and that should probably stay the same. We're not going big or anything this year.
This is for down tree remediation with dangerous trees. Is that what you're saying, Ben?
Yes.
Down trees like down panel. Can't remember if that's called.
This is the reimbursement that.
No.
No,
No, this is not.
what is this?
So this is risk mitigation throughout the village. So there's a program that we offer. Basically, we do an inventory of all of this sort of scary, dangerous, risky trees in the village. We invite those property owners to take those things down so that they don't kill people. And then we fund a portion of that cost for specifically those trees that we have identified proactively as being dangerous.
And you want to keep that number the same?
Yeah. We're going to keep it. Same plan this year.
The description is exactly wrong.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Totally fine.
Okay, so landfill brush maintenance, and then we get to a bunch of calculated lines that are based on payroll. We can skip past all of the state retirement, FICA, Medicare, disability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a lot of money spent on health insurance. That's your hospital and medical. For anyone keeping track at home or not, the village pays over $310,000 a year in health insurance premiums. For anyone keeping track at home or not, we pay 92.5% of all of our employees' health insurance, which is by far the most generous package I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I digress. Sidewalk bans are paid off. That's nice. At least principal on the fire truck, which is paid off. This is the last one, right?
Yes.
I like it. Okay.
Well, except for, from what I understand, Matt is looking at another.
Yes.
Well, there's like a 20-year head planner anyway.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
I know.
Yeah. They're building that one out but it won't come for 3 more
And
years.
that's not a lease. It's a purchase.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get the lease to drop off. That's good. We've got the lease for the code enforcement vehicle. We've got the lease for the police chief's vehicle, which is going to get paid off and maybe repurposed.
yes. And I know Chief is
Looking for
thinking in his head, yeah.
Okay. All right, DPW equipment.
So,
We had talked about lowering that number a lot.
Yeah, but now I'm I'm even more confused after our previous conversation
about the snow plows.
about the plows
Yeah, I'm
and
used to it.
everything else. So I had, so based on my numbers, I actually had nothing in equipment reserves for the year. And then coming back basically skipping a year and then coming back at like 36. That I thought we had so much more than we needed, but.
So is that capital sheet in the Dropbox?
I don't think my latest version is, so I can put it in there.
Put it in there, I'll take a look.
Then we have to do at least the 18 grand for the roof truck.
Right, the leaf machine is coming out of
Right.
reserves. Where was that?
I don't think I have a leaf truck at all in here, so that's an interesting thing to add in.
And I believe after this year, I believe that there is 2 more years. After the 2023 payment in October, there's 2 more years on it.
All right, so that, and you were saying that was 12?
No, 18.
18, sorry, 18.
Well, it's 18,114.
So I will look at the capital sheet. I'll work on that with Ben. We're not raising it to 60. We're either keeping it, we might lower it actually.
What are we doing about it? Isn't this the year that we have to do the backhoe? Wouldn't it be in July that we do the backhoe? Are we on 2 years with that?
No, this is the second year.
So I had the backhoe. I think I had that in. Yeah, I had that in actually next budget year. No,
Okay.
sorry, in the 24-25 budget.
Okay,
year,
okay.
that.
Okay. Because I know Dusty had said something about that because we didn't use it. Knock on wood, a lot this year that they didn't think that they were gonna, they didn't have a lot of hours.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had put it as happening, and this is part of this list. The spreadsheet was, I would put that as in the 24-25 budget.
Okay,
What's your name of the file?
Sorry, DPW vehicle replacement schedule, PD, just so I'm thinking about it. Okay.
And that'll be in the Dropbox under bus budget year. Yeah.
okay. And then I'll
I just-
start with the Dropbox. Okay,
Let's make that, for now, let's make that 40,000.
okay.
Building reserve is 10, fires, contract,
Mhm.
fire house repair. Keith, do you know? Joe had 25,000 in the police vehicle. Do we know why that's doubled?
Because he also anticipates buying a new vehicle in the 23-24 budget year. And he also doesn't have enough with what we're gonna put in and generally the 12 that we put in to get that new vehicle. But then he's talked about cutting down on vehicles too. I was gonna say. All these vehicles.
Well, I'll look at that too.
Sorry, one last question on the truck. She said there was, how many more payments do you think?
After this year, after 23-24, there are 2 more.
Okay.
So 20,
So 3 total.
it'll be 2025, 26.
Yeah.
You're not gonna put anything in stabilization.
EMS vehicle, is that from contract or did we bump that?
That's from contract.
Municipal.
Village building reserve, nothing.
What's the balance in that
I
account?
think it's about
You want
65,000.
to look up the exact dollar.
I was
Uh,
thinking 55. I think it'd be fine to 0.
66,000.
say that again, Ben.
In my head, I had 55,000 and I think it's fine to 0. For this year, I think 55 will cover any, right? If this is going to be grant funded, it'll cover any sort of administrative technical costs.
Which line are we talking about?
Capital reserve, the building, EMS building.
Yeah, there's 66,000 in there now.
Oh, okay.
In the
Yeah,
account,
that's
in the account, yeah. Just thinking about whether to fund it anymore or not. I'll look at that.
Right.
Do you want me to put zero
Yeah, I don't
in
think we should. I think we can 0 that.
there?
Okay.
Sidewalk reserve 0.
Correct. Fire, EMS communication, EMS capital reserve. What were we using in that? Ben, that EMS capital reserve account? Is that in anticipation of a building?
Yes. Yep, that's the building.
What's in that account now? Vicky, what's in that bank account now?
Oh, I thought that's the one. Wait, I just got my wires crossed. I thought that's the one we were talking about.
Oh, no, we're talking about the village hall building reserve.
Oh, geez. I'm sorry.
Which
Yeah, so that's the one that I thought was 55
There's
that I
four.
thought we could 0 out.
Does that include what we had allocated last year, the
No.
15?
No, it does not.
Okay, so you're right, so 55, so we can zero that this year. EMS maintenance, that's all, and fire for the reserve.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so as soon as you get that in the Dropbox, I need to see all the payroll changes and.
Are we done? Are we gonna talk about, so do you want to do it now?
Sure.
Okay.
Anything else on general? Well, we still have a few things that need to be researched.
Actually, quickly, I couldn't hear the beginning, Roden, when you were talking about the unencumbered balance. Do we know what the total is?
It's fairly large at the moment. Courtesy of ARPA money, it's actually 811.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So, if there's no questions on general, we'll circle back to these last few items on Wednesday, and then capital water and sewer, which should be pretty straightforward.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll look at the replacement schedule too.
Yeah, it's in there. I think 40 would be sufficient, but again, I want to like sit down one more time with it, get more depth.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gotta double check some of those payroll lines and things. Great. Do we have a need of an executive session?
It said personnel, I don't know. Oh,
Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So,
second.
and unless there's any objection, we will stay adjourned. Have a good night, man.
Nicely done.